Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. Yay. I'm your host, Josh Turner. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. Macho Man. All right. So we got a show tonight, like always. We always got a show. But tonight, it's going to be a very special show. And this is our favorite episode, right? Last week was our favorite episode until this one. Yeah. The week before was our favorite episode until that one. You see where I'm going with this?
I don't know. From what I've been told, this one's pretty great, though.
Yeah, because you quantumly went into the future and you saw how great it was.
Yeah, well, they send me some notes from the future.
That's right. And that's all because of me. I give him power of cosmic, like Silver Surfer.
Well, I also just try my best not to pay attention to anyone in this time area.
Because we're all slow.
Well, behind, really.
Deluded beings.
When you're talking to people from the future.
Today we were out. We did the mail-offs today, folks, okay? And Tony and me and Anthony were told by, I want to give a shout out to Ashley, the girl that works for her stepdad, Kevin, who's a great guy. We mail out of a place called Postal Annex. And she was giving us suggestions on how to manage the mail better. And I really don't know. We're not good listeners. I don't know. What do you think? He's not a good listener.
What'd you say?
What are we talking about?
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding. I'm a good listener when men are talking, but when girls start talking,
oh my gosh, that is totally not true.
We don't support.
He doesn't listen to men either.
Yeah, he's just horrible all around.
Whenever the voice is in his head, it sounds something like.
Don't let him lie to you, folks. He sounds half competent.
No, I listen to those Fraggles in my head.
Yeah, exactly. The
They're
Dozers.
pretty cool.
Anybody know what the Dozers are? Go look it up. Fraggle Rock. Patreon.com/PRT podcast. That's where you go to sign up. And why should they sign up, Tony? Tell them why they should sign up.
Well, we got a lot of different tiers. Or that's a good reason why you should sign up. For one, you can support us, which we always appreciate. But if you do, and you start supporting us for 10 months, after about $10, after about 3 months, we'll start sending you a swag bag. And if you want to skip that altogether, you can send us $20, and we'll send you a swag bag immediately. And we have a $30 tier, where if you send us a $30 tier, we'll increase the swag bag, and we'll make we'll put some better stuff in there for you. But, I mean, that $10 swag bag's not bad. I mean, I think every time we send one out, there's usually someone that takes a picture of it, puts it on Facebook.
It's the same as the $20 bag, except
you have to wait a little longer.
You have to wait a little longer to get it. Now, Anthony, have you set it up to where they have the $30 bag yet?
Have we started doing that?
No, but it's going to be set up tonight.
Okay, it's something that he's going to do, folks.
Yeah.
Kind of like how people say, like, I'm going to lose weight, and they don't. You see them, and they're fatter than ever, and I'm the same way.
Happens every January.
Look at you, and then they'll lie, and they're like, oh, you look like you've lost weight, and you're like, you are a horrible liar.
How much time did you spend in the gym?
Okay, but one thing I did do is got that conference poster up, which is an important thing to talk about.
God.
Because the tickets are on sale for the conference.
Yep.
Yeah, let's take the.
You know what? Let me. I'm gonna post a link.
Let's talk about the conference.
Yeah, let's talk about good things I've done.
Like
yeah, which is Jeopardy. A lot of things.
He's over there going like, pick cartoons, dude. Come on, pick a category that I know. Pop culture. Starting to get stressed out over
letters that start with G. I know this one.
Okay, so yeah, because that's what you do. So, bottom line though, when somebody says they're going to do something, unless they're me, don't really believe it, because they do that a lot. They say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then they always have some kind of bullcrap excuse. You're like, well, why didn't you do that? And they're like, I was in jail. Oh, okay, yeah, me too. You too? I was there too. What tank were you in? B. Like, that's where I was at. And they're like, yeah, but I was in El Salvador. And you're like, oh wow, what happened? Oh, my wife got liquored up, and the bartender she cut her off, and she stabbed him. Like, wow. Yeah, she's got issues, man. You gotta be careful with her. She's one of those kind of people, man. Just, people lie to you. They tell you one thing and they do another. They say things that they don't really mean, and they're full of crap. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to lose weight, but it is very darn difficult. But unlike some people, I know my shirt size.
To be fair, I mean, you've lost a significant amount of weight.
Well, way back, but not now. I'm like,
no, I mean, you put in the work, so it's not like something you can say that you.
2 months before last conference, I gained a bunch of weight because I couldn't exercise.
Yeah.
And I gained like 30 pounds right before the conference. I just have not been able to get rid of it. It's just been so hard. But I got to really buckle down and try to get this done. Tomorrow I file my taxes, and then I could just start looking forward to getting things done. I had a wonderful conversation with Adam Davies good guy. He's going to be coming on the show toward the end of May. But the important thing is we signed him on for doing the conference, and but unfortunately, Steve Stockton is pulled out. He didn't make it last year. I thought he would try to make it this year, but he's not going to be there, folks. Sorry about that. I like Steve; he's a great guy, but it just I don't have a real reason right now, and we're not sure about Chad Lewis. But if anybody's willing to donate or pitch in or help out to offset some of the costs of the conference, that's a big deal too. Donations are not expected, but they are appreciated on the show, and we could definitely use some help to get this going. But once it gets going, and we almost broke even last year.
We did really well, and
we didn't do really well.
Well, I mean,
not financially,
a lot better than we thought we were going to do. We thought we were going to make a bigger loss. I guess I was going to say. So
we lost about $3,000,
which was
way less than we thought we would. We had planned for about $5,000.
Well, that's even with us like starting to give out a lot of stuff. Like if we were real stingy
at
and
the end,
sold
we
every
would have
piece
not
of
given away
merchandise,
$2,000 worth of merchandise. Yeah, we probably could have broken.
Yeah, we could have done a lot better. But
the thing is, so hold on, babbler. Oh, wait, that's you. Hold on. Let me say, what we're trying to do this year, though, is I'm not trying to make money. I promise you that. This is not about making money. This is about bringing to you, the listeners, okay? It is bringing you these speakers. Now, in order to facilitate all the speakers being able to speak and have a panel, I'm not speaking, okay? You hear me speak on the show constantly, and I was telling Ken this yesterday, and I told Ken, I was like, dude, I can talk for 12 hours if you want me to. And he goes, oh, I can attest to that. I'm like, you little smart mouth. He was on the phone in San Antonio. He wasn't in front of me. Okay, little weasel, but no, I'm just kidding. I love Ken. He's a great guy. He's an invaluable ally, great help. He's a great dude. But him and I will probably not be speaking. We're just going to be sharing the MC duties. You'll hear me speak, and I'll be up there, and we will probably. He'll have his books, and hopefully mine will be out and published by then. And hopefully we're pushing it. I'm trying to crunch. I'm spending every moment that I have free, either talking to the witnesses, trying to get stories. I have a few big ones I'm trying to get reeled in so I can get them for the book, or to get them whatever. And I should have my books ready for sale at the conference. I'm going to unveil them at the conference. That's where it's going to be. The tickets, did you put it up there where they could go?
Yeah.
Conference tickets are right there on top of the screen.
Yeah.
Of the chat.
And I'm going to tell you, like we did last year, we told you last year, we're like, hurry up and buy them. The VIP are going blazing fast. I mean, out the gate, like they are. We sold like 20, I think, right out the gate, like boom, 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 like just as soon as it was up, and there was a little lull, and now it started rolling again today. If you want those tickets, you better get them, and the VIP are only 25 more than they were last year, but there's a limited number. And then the regular tickets are 65, which is really a steal for what you're getting, because you're getting everyone from last year. I don't know that Vault is going to be able to make it. I guess there's only him and Jody and one other person that's not going to be there. Everybody else is. Now, here's the thing. Dark Waters is not going to attend. He gave me his reasons. I'm not going to, there's issues with people, not me. I mean, I'm not beefing with nobody. I had a good conversation with him day before yesterday. I like him. He's a good guy. We had a good talk or whatever, but he said he's going to be only doing one conference, and that's Dave Schrader's conference, and he's not going to be doing anything else. And there has been some bad blood, and it's very public, okay? It's been very public between him and Vault. Vault is said, very publicly that he is not a fan of Dark Waters. He makes no bones about it. So that being said, I don't know if Vault's going to go either. I don't know, and I talked to him, and because he was at the conference last year, I extended the invitation to Dark Waters, and he declined it, and because he had said he would probably go, but then all this stuff popped off, so it's not my deal. I wish people could bury the hatchet or whatever, but like my situation that I had with a particular individual yesterday was my mother's birthday, And I thought about it yesterday. And my mother, I know she would want me to forgive and forget. She doesn't care what people. She never did. She never cared what people said about her. There were some people that said some really mean, nasty things to me, and about me. Coming on the heels of that, who said things like, "Oh, I wish your mom would die again." Like they were saying some pretty nasty things. The joke's on you because I really don't care. My mom wouldn't give a crap what you say about her. She was not one of those people that's like, "Oh, they were talking bad about me, mijo. You better get on there and defend me." She didn't need that, and I don't need to get up here and defend my mother. She died May 16th, so I got to go through her anniversary of her death coming up next month. But I'm not going to dwell on that. What I did yesterday, I had a lot going on yesterday. I didn't really get a chance to think about her birthday much, but I did today. And happy birthday, Mother, because I know that you're in heaven. You're not one of those people that's looking up like my great uncle. Ooh, did I say that? Yes, I did. Yeah, he's probably looking up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there are some people that just thrive on that kind of negative whatever. But when you have two friends like Dark Waters and Vault, who I like both those guys a lot, and I wish that they could patch it up, but you can't make them do it. It's up to them, and they each have their own grievance, and it is what it is. I have my own opinions about the situation. I'm not going to voice them because it's no one's business. My team knows. But we're not involved in that. So they're not going to be there. It's unfortunate. I'd like for Vol to at least try to make it if he can. But Elijah Henderson is another one who I don't believe is going to be able to make the conference. He was there last year because it was more accessible to him in Tennessee. And I don't know about Tony Merkel. I haven't gotten a word back from him. Now, Josh Inocchio is on board from what lurks beneath. But we have new people this year to fill the void for those who are gone. We're like the Avengers. We just keep, and they're good, okay? You got Ron Moorhead, Sibylla Irwin, and Adam Davies. And if you don't know who they are, look them up, okay? Those are three heavy hitters that are going to be there. They weren't there last year. Now, having been told no, a couple times now by Steve, I'm going to let the ball be in his court if we do one next year, whether he wants to come to me and say, hey, I'm going to go or not. Obviously it's not in the cards, not his thing, whatever. Hope it's nothing I did. I like you, Steve. I have no problems with you. But maybe you guys can go and harass the crap out of him and make him go, along with Chad Lewis. Chad has a very busy schedule, and Chad had tentatively said yes to us. And then he said he didn't know if he could make it because he's got, I think, like right after that, he's got like the Van Meter conference or whatever. So, but that's it. There's not a matter of, anything else. I mean, we've pulled out all the stops this year to get some real heavy hitters. You got Ken, of course. You got Lyle Blackburn. You got Nick Redfern from last year. All those guys. David Weatherly. Barton Nunley's going to be there. Of course, he's a fan favorite. Everybody loves Barton. And who else we got? Who else is going to be there?
Let's see. Hang on, let me bust out the whole.
Anyways, there's going to be a lot of people there. I mean, a bunch, and I don't expect you to know off the top of your head, Anthony. But I mean, if you got the list, you could throw it out there. Who's going to be there? But
it's pretty exciting, though. I mean, that's the main thing we're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. You're going to leave with something. I promised everybody that last year, and I delivered, okay? I'm delivering that this year. I'm giving you my guarantee. If you go to the conference, you're not going to leave empty-handed. You're not going to be like, oh, man, I just didn't feel like it was good, blah, blah, blah.
We also got Nick Redfern, Ron Murphy, Kenny Irish, Nick Valente, Jessica Jones, D.A. Roberts, Bettina Moss, Ann Celine, David Weatherly, and, of course, Ken Gerhard, Lyle Blackburn, Christopher Garantano.
Christopher Garantano is another one that's going to be there. If you don't know who that is, folks, look him up because he has done some amazing work. The Montauk Chronicles, it's a show. Thank you, Sugar Britches, for that donation. Always there to help. Appreciate it so much. Chris is one who I think is one of the best. I really like Chris a lot. I wish Jason Bland could go, but this year it falls on Labor Day weekend, and he runs Under Armour location, and so he's in retail, and he's a general manager of a store. And Jason is one of those unsung heroes in this field too. If you don't watch Paranormal Soup, that's one of like 3 shows I'll take time to watch. when I can. On Sunday night when you're not doing nothing, look up Paranormal Soup. He doesn't get a lot of listeners on YouTube or Facebook. He does have a few that come in. He's on like Radio Stream or Livestream Radio or something. I forgot what it's called. Stream, whatever. That's where his main audience is. But he does a great show. He does a great job. He's interviewed a lot of people, and he has a very good show he does. And him and Jamie, the girl that was on our show a couple weeks ago, I think, week before last. Jamie.
Was that soon or long ago?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Life is easier to remember when you don't do cannabis. I'm just saying. I don't know if that's what you're doing or not. But if you are, maybe you can.
Mr. Noodle on Elmo's World did silly things too. That was
I thought it was last week.
That was the whole point of Mr. Noodle. Like he would put like
last week was like a fever dream. I guess I just forgot about it.
Shoes on his ears.
Totally meant like totally.
It wasn't last week. It was the week before. Noodles.
Yeah.
Wake up, jeez. Okay, let me get started here. You know what? We're enough talking about noodles in the conference because somebody's going to complain and then they're going to try to timestamp it. The show really started in 20 minutes. Okay, when that happens, guess what I do? I take your comment off. That's what happens. I always do that. So anyways, bottom line, we got stuff to do. We got to get going here. Here's what's going to happen. Somebody says, I hate hot weather. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Fair enough. It may be hot that Labor Day weekend. It may be scalding hot. We don't know. Anyways, it may not be. Sometimes September's weird in Texas. It can be very weird. And that in October can be really hot, or it can be like a cool front. We've even had, like the last few years have been so weird, we've even had little minor cool fronts roll in the middle of August. And it'll drop down into the 80s, and you're just going like, what in the heck is going on? Or it'll just rain for like 2 weeks. Like a few years ago, it just rained the entire month of August, which was nice. Cool things off. But the weather does not seem normal. It just, we've talked about this. Like HARP, we don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem correct. It seems like it's, people talk about weather manipulation and everybody's like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, how do you explain some of the weird stuff that's been going on? Because it's really hard to explain. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a story. We had one. Let me see if I can find this. This one's a pretty good one. Now, we have a guy coming on in a little bit. He's going to come on at, we got about, 40 minutes? And then he's going to come on. He's going to talk. He's a Bigfoot researcher, and a lot of you guys may already know who he is. I don't know if you know him or not. And hopefully he'll show up at the conference, too. I don't know that, because we're going to have a panel. I don't know if he's going to speak or what, but he's definitely going to be. And I've also talked to Carter Bouchard, if you don't know who that is. I don't know who all is speaking, who all is just going to be there, and then who all is going to be on the panel. But anyway, we have. I had a story that somebody gave me, and this was pretty crazy. Not like, oh, it's so crazy, because we've heard a lot of crazy stories. But imagine if you were leaving the house to go to work, and this person works the night shift. They work 11 to 7. And they were leaving their house to go to work in Salem, Oregon. This happened in Salem, Oregon, or outside of Salem, Oregon, I guess I should say. And they were walking outside to go to work. And I don't know if they actually was 11 to 7, or it was a midnight, something like that. They were saying what happened was, hold on. Sorry. Let me check my notes one more time. That's right. Okay. So, I'm wrong. They live in Salem, Oregon now. They were living in Portland, Oregon. God bless them. But then back then when this happened, Portland was not what it is now, which is a very disjointed place to be, and very politically swayed, to one side, and everybody's just, if you're not on that side, then they hate you. It's not what it was like then. And this was like 12 years ago. And so this person was leaving to go to work, and it was 11 to 7, or he was leaving at 11 o'clock. He had to work at midnight. A couple days had gone by, and he lived on the outskirts of town, and he had heard like noises going by his bedroom window, and he thought that it was the neighbors. They had some teenagers that were, pernicious, I guess, and just kind of, they would get in trouble. They would do things they weren't supposed to be doing. Well, not rambunctious. He said that they were like bad. Let's just put it that way. They had toilet papered his house. They lived in a subdivision, whatever, and it was a newer subdivision at that time, or a newer house, whatever. And they had done a few things to the neighbor's house, and he just assumed it was these kids again doing what they did. So he was going to scare them. And of course, he's a security guard. He goes out at night, and his wife she would travel. She would go up to Washington, up to Tacoma, and then she would come back down. And so when she was gone, it was just him at the house, and they have children now, but they didn't have children at the time, and they just started living, and that was their first, they were renting, I believe he said. That was their first place they lived in together. Somebody says, when you said Salem, Wolf, you caught my cat's attention. His name is Salem. That's funny. So anyways, long story short, he's walking out of the house, and he wears like a night watchman's cap. He likes to wear, how my brother does. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't know what that is, it's like a black beanie, but it just covers over your head. And he said that something, like he walked under a tree because he had a low-hanging tree. It brushed up against his head, and next thing you know, it's off of his head, and he turns to, he goes, "Oh, I didn't realize that this branch was that low-hanging."
It snagged my hat.
It snagged my hat. So he sat down his book bag, and he turned around, and he looked, and the hat was gone. And so he's just like, I don't have time for this. He just, he looks at his watch, and he's like, I got to go. And some of us, yes, wear watches. I'm sorry. He's he's about my age. He's a
fool.
A what?
The fool?
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
You're saying fools wear watches because you're wearing a watch too.
You're wearing a watch too, sir. Okay. So anyway, are you insulting my Generation X because we actually work? You work for a living? Oh my God. What's wrong with you?
Watches are for old people.
Watches for old people. Yeah, at least we can use computers. Like some of these kids now, they can't even use computers. All they know how to do is use a phone. You talk to them, they're like, "Oh, is there an app for that?" No, there's not. It's called a conversation, But no, so he's walking out. He doesn't have time. And this is what makes the story really, incredible. Because I was reading it and I was thinking, oh, that's crazy. So he gets in his car, he takes off, he goes to work. Next day he comes home. His trash is thrown all over the yard. And it's a sleepy neighborhood. It was a newer neighborhood, and it wasn't like, nobody's going to be out, eating trash. Even the neighbor kids that lived down the road that were annoying and had, did bad things. They were young teenagers. And so he thought, is it possible maybe that these kids threw the trash everywhere and then maybe some raccoons got into it or something? Because it looked like it was partially eaten. So he was sort of like freaked out by that. He goes inside, goes to sleep. He wakes up the next day. He talks to his neighbor. He goes out there and he tells his neighbor what happened. The neighbor's like, yeah, they hit mine too. He goes, I'd come out and in the middle of the night, I heard a bunch of clanging and I now here's where it gets interesting. He says that when he came out, he thought he saw a large dog, but he couldn't be for sure, and he said that he saw it take off into the darkness and go around the corner by your house, which would be this guy, Jason's house. That's his first name. But anyway, and so Jason was like, that's weird, this large dog was. And so he goes back into his house and he's kind of scratching his head thinking, what the heck, where did my hat go? Large dog, something snatching my hat off my head. That doesn't go together. Those two things don't go together. Up to this point in time, he had never heard of what we know as the dog man. He had never heard of this, didn't know anything about it, nothing about it. And he found me from, perusing channels and stuff and some of the shows that I was on. And it wasn't on the big show. That it was a different show that I was talking about. It might have been the Confessionals. I think it was Tony's show. And he said, I found you. and you talk a lot about that. So I started listening to your stuff, and I liked it. And I can't remember exactly, like I said, how you found me, but I was on somebody's show. I've been on so many, and he said, yeah, and I listened to you, and so I went and started listening to your show, and so he told me this story, and one of the things that he said was that this incident with the hat, like it really disturbed him, like it really bothered him. So he went outside and he looked into the trees and he didn't see anything. And he thought, well, you know, this is just weird, you know.
Did he see any branches that were low enough?
Well, let me tell you, when so the next night he's coming out and he takes his flashlight, he looks around in the trees, and he looks up and he sees right there on the roof of his house, because of the way that his house was built. Okay, he said it was like the garage. It was kind of like the way it was angled. There was a branch that was hanging over where the garage was, and it kind of went down over the where the driveway was. And he says, "There's no way that branch is low enough." You know, and he just keeps shaking his head. There's no way. When he's walking to his car, he sees something be thrown right in front of him. It's his hat. And when he looks down, he's like, "Okay, that didn't just fall from a tree." He's like, something threw that. And he heard this ba-boom, ba-boom. And then he looks up, and right there on his roof is what can only be described as a werewolf. Now, he did say it wasn't a humongous beast. It wasn't a lumbering, hulking beast like you would think of as it was like, you know, it wasn't anything like that. He said it was tall, taller than a man when it stood up. He said it stood up, and he said it just kind of had its hands like arms down on its knees, like somebody would just be watching, like they're playing shortstop or second base. And he said that, and that's my words, that's not his, but that was, you know, so this thing's staring at him, and it's looking at him, and it's up on the roof, and this guy is freaked out because he's sitting here going like, how did this thing, you know, like, where did it come from? How does it even exist? How did it get on my roof? Obviously, it climbed the tree, and the night before, when his hat was swiped, what had to have happened was that thing had reached down with its weird-looking hands, the way he described them, and literally pulled it off of his head. And so when he's walking out of his house, it throws it right there in front of him like, there's your hat, dude. Yeah, and it was a brownish black in color. He had a nice, you know, flashlight or whatever. We use them, those stream lights. They work very well. There's some called the Scorpion Stingers, different ones. They're pretty good. And he had one of those small ones like I've had for years, and we talked shop a little bit because he does do security. And he's just floored by this creature just standing there looking at him. When he shined the light on him, the thing didn't balk. He just stared into the light, and its eyes glowed yellow. Here's the weirdest part. When he pulled the light away, the thing's eyes were still glowing like it had absorbed the light and was emitting a yellowish, orangey glow. Here's the creepier part. He said it was not unlike the color of your logo. We're talking about the first logo.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And I was like, okay. And, you know, and he said that when he looks at that logo, it kind of reminds him of it. Also, the dog man on our logo, on that particular logo, he said how it's kind of tall and thin and rangy looking. That's how this thing looked. And so I said, yeah, sir. What I did was I went back in time. Me and Tony talked about that earlier. And I put a cardboard cutout of our mascot on your roof to scare you and to give me a story that I could later use in 2023.
It's really an elaborate plan that we haven't figured out yet, but once we do,
we will.
It'll be for something.
Our future and former selves work together on all this stuff, these shenanigans. It's really us doing all of it, and we're okay with that.
The millions and millions of years of paranormal activity has really just been orchestrated by us so that we could do our show.
It comes to this moment, yeah. And in the future, Paranormal Roundtable will actually be the state religion.
I've seen it.
We've seen it, yeah. We made it happen. We caused it to happen. You're still going to worship God, but this time with a twist. If you don't worship God the way we do, then you are penalized. First, it's financial. Then we just kill you. I know that our God would not really want us to do that, but we have no control over our evil future selves.
Yeah, they kind of go AWOL after a while.
Yeah.
I think what happens is enough people didn't go to the conference, and they also didn't
we become
donate
angry.
enough.
Our future selves, and some of them spiral off into drug abuse.
Like all I'm saying is, it's still preventable now, but that's up to y'all.
You can stop it now for just $125. You can stop it all. But that's what you want. If that's what you want, okay, fine. Then you get it.
Oh, wow. Those conference tickets are just right up there on top of the chat. What are the odds?
Evil villain wolf, you got 3 minutes. And then you don't do that, and then bang. Pow, pow, pow. And to shoot you in the... Villains are always like overplaying their hand. Ours won't. Trust me. No. So the thing is, when he saw that creature standing on the roof, now I asked him, I said, was there any more activity? And he said, yeah. And I go, oh, it's late. I got to go. And I hung up on him. No, it's not what happened. He told me, he said, dude, there was more, but we're going to revisit that. We're going to stop it right there.
I will say, at least he gave the hat back. I mean, I think I saw a comment about it, but I was thinking the same thing.
I don't think it was it terrified him.
It was trying to scare him in a way? Or
what do you think he was trying to do? Do you think it was like, hey, buddy, I was just playing with you?
I used it to a party, and here you go.
Yeah, because Dogman does that all the time. Let me tell you something, folks. Some of these people out here, I'm not one of them, that believes that these things are just like, I'm a Dogman. Ah.
I just don't know why I'd give it back.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second, because some of the things that this thing did after the fact, and I also think he was targeted, and I don't think it was by accident either. And there's more to it, like I said. But I think that we're going to eventually explore a couple more happenings with this guy, and this does get into supernatural because, and I don't have time to get into it all right now because I have a guest to bring on, but it gets into Supernaturalville because there were some things that went along with this, and I don't, I'm starting to believe now with all the people that I've interviewed and things that I've looked at, the dream part of it, it is a part of it.
Yeah, it's like it's too frequent. I mean, you would think. I mean, we kind of all. I don't mean to ramble a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is,
go ahead.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is that it's too frequent, and that we've always put it as, scary thing happens. So of course you have scary dream, but at the same time, it happens so much that I also believe that it might be them like literally imprinting or forcing something onto you and leaving something with you, because it just happens too much for it to not have some kind of significance to it.
Well, it's nice that you think that the thing was being friendly by throwing him his hat back. I think it was.
Well, I didn't know all that other stuff happened.
I think he was putting him on notice.
I thought he stole his hat, wore it for like the town, and then just came back and gave it to him, and that was the end of the story.
So you're saying it was.
I didn't know that there was some other stuff happening.
You're admitting that it was a werewolf.
Maybe he just didn't have any money. He was broke and needed a hat.
Yeah, I didn't like to assume yet until I heard the rest of the story.
If you pan the camera back to Noodles, okay, over here, that shirt is huge on you, dude, and that's why people think your arms. Like, go ahead and flex, pull it out. Let me see your arms. Pull your shirt out. Your arms out.
He's not gonna do that.
He's not okay.
Hang on.
Minster Noodles.
Go ahead, do it for the camera so they can see. There you go.
Wow, that's not as bad as, because the shirt makes it look like, and folks, what happened was last week we had a guest that came on, and she, Jenna Grover, she's one of the She Squatchers, and she razzed Mushu about his arms. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so scrawny and weak." And Tony on air admitted, if you go back and watch, it's incredible what happens. He admits that he is scared of weights, in particular 10-pound plates. And what he does is he runs from them.
I don't appreciate you saying that. I never said I was scared of them.
He said that in his dreams, they frighten him, yeah. And so, well, same thing. And so he says he's terrified of them. And then, like, he has these dreams, and he admitted to me and Anthony on the way home, right, Anthony? He said that he has these dreams where he's lifting and then his arms fall off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're just like, dude, if you're
I just believe that dreams are premonition. I feel like they're telling me that if I lift now, I won't have arms in the future.
Well, you barely have arms now.
So I got to keep them while I got them.
It's a shame because that's a nice shirt. You just don't fill it out.
Yeah, I think it was one of yours. I think you gave it to me when I had to work the pool. And I just never gave it back.
Is it?
I don't know.
It's Anthony's shirt. He's
I mean,
like,
if it's a nice shirt and you're wearing it, it makes sense because I have good taste. So.
well, you actually do have like good taste in clothing. You know?
I actually do agree.
I'll give you that. Anthony, Tony is
he
the
dresses pretty snazzy.
But people are always talking about how much alike they are. They're not. These two are completely different. Even though one is Anthony, one is Tony. Anthony's first name is actually Mario. So we call his dad Mario.
We're just both skinny and the same color.
Yeah. So. Anthony because it's a familial name. My cousin's name is Anthony, and Anthony is just one of those names. Also, Paul is a familial name. My cousin was Paul Anthony, and my middle name is Paul. But so Tony his name is actually Tony, and your middle name is X, isn't it? It's just like X.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you look at Tony and you look at Anthony, they are very different people. People just get them confused because they kind of look similar in body shape, except Anthony actually goes to the gym and does works out. Tony goes, and when I try to make him rack to help me rack, then he'll work out to avoid racking. So that's how we've tricked him into working out. We told him, hey, you're going to have to go to the gym with us because we're going, and you're going to have to help me rack so I can do supersets. Then he goes, oh, well, I'll work out so he can avoid having to help. So we ended up tricking him into working out by making him help. So that's what's happened. But Tony is actually, he dresses completely different than Anthony. Like, I'm not joking. If I ever see a doppelganger of Tony and it's dressed nice and its shoes are tied, I'll know it's not really him. It's a demon pretending to be him. Just like with Anthony, if I see somebody dressed like garbage, walking around dressed like Tony, I know that is a doppelganger demon of Anthony.
I work at night all the time, so I don't see a reason.
Oh,
to dress
really?
up.
Really? You work all the time?
What does that have to do?
You're
with
Alec? Alec,
Well,
Alec.
not now,
He
but
worked
I
all
used
that
to
when
work all the time at night. So
from eating like big boy food with.
I don't understand how that has to do with
carbs.
me dressing. That you're just coming out of nowhere, bringing
Instead
up
of
random
just
stuff.
Somebody says,
I like the color blue. You want to tag
I
that?
think it's like
Vegetables.
pancakes and shrimp and eggs and fried rice. It's gross. Vault of Nightmares. Hey, Wolf, do you want me to bring all my toys this year? What kind of toys are we talking about? Are we talking about G.I. Joe action figures? Or are we talking about assault weapons? Because no assault weapons, dude. But it is Texas, and that's your choice. But I don't need them in the building, like, unless you're just planning on doing security. You can do that without bringing, AR-10s and 15s and whatever. And what was it? Don't bring those... was it a shotgun? And they said it was an assault shotgun.
Oh yeah.
Don't bring that assault weapon. It's a 12 gauge. Come on, dude. No, not you. We're not making fun of you, Vol, but people. There was somebody that said that on TV, and we were laughing about it the other day because then they had PTSD, like they always do. I don't know. I was raised around guns. I'm different. I'm not a person that's like a. How would you describe my stance on guns? I think they're like tools.
Just practical. I mean,
it's a protective thing. It's like a drill. I mean, I don't go around with my drill being like, hey, you never know when you're going to have to screw something in, blah, 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 and I don't walk around with my gun like that, This
brand new 18-volt Makita. Check it out, man. that ain't nothing. You got to check out this Milwaukee drill I just got. Yeah. Milwaukee sucks.
DeWalt forever.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. Like, I have a friend who literally, I went to his house, I used the restroom, and he had a stack of magazines there, and I thought, oh, magazines, because I'm old, as Tony reminds me, and I picked it up, and I was looking at it, and there were no pictures, and I threw it away. Now, it was guns and ammo. Literally guns and ammo. And I was like, that's ridiculous. But, I go to my mechanic, and they'll have guns and ammo magazines right there, too, and I'm like, geez, who's sitting at the auto shop and reading guns and ammo while they're using the bathroom? But people do, it's whatever, and I'm just not one of those people. I don't, if I'm going to read a magazine, it's like, Military History or Scientific American or Mental Floss or Discover or something like that. I'm not going to waste my time reading about guns because I do know a lot about guns. These guys can attest to that, and I'm a pretty darn good shot, if I do say so myself. But I don't. It's not like something that occupies a lot of my time. Now, I'll get people that will thank you for that donation, Sugar Bridges. You don't have to do that. You're already moderating. We appreciate it. But we do get people all the time that will hit me up and they'll talk to me about guns. And if you go to the episode I did with Vault, we do talk about guns in that episode quite a bit because his encounter involved weapons, because he's always with them. And when he goes out into the field, he carries weapons. Now, a lot of people do that. If you're going to be boots on the ground, you're going to go out into the field, I would suggest doing that. Thank you, Chris, for that donation. I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you, I wouldn't shoot these. They're our nice little furry woodland creature friends, because that's not my stance. Now, Tony may think that they are. He may think that creature was throwing Jason's cat back to him because he wanted to be a nice, a good dog man, whatever.
Oh, no, I'm all about killing them and eating them.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. But I'm not one of those people. I'm not about killing them and eating them, though, but I'm just being completely serious here for a second. Your face is, I'm sorry.
I'm just confused where
I
you're
gotta
trying
look
to
at
go.
you, man, because your face is making me laugh, dude. Your face.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Oh, now he's not doing it.
Oh, that's real cute. Okay.
He got us. He got. Just stop, folks. I'm not up here like an idiot trying to. This guy's making me stop. Quit. All right. I'm not looking at. I'm not gonna look at you, dude. You're just making me laugh over here. Somebody says, "Kill them all. Let God sort them out." No. We're not, because we don't know what they are. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit up here and say that. I'm not taking a stance on that. And I'm not taking a stance on any other political issue today either. Not on the show. What I'm saying is, if you are out there in the field and you are going to be out there where they're at, I would take something. Now, James Estrada just brought something up. He says, have you heard the Hernandez Ranch episodes? Those are dope. Okay, sir, I'm not into dope either. I'm not into the illegal drugs. The thing is, if you go to the Hernandez Ranch episode, I'm glad you brought that up. There is a guy that we know named Noah, okay? He uses incendiary rounds on these things. Now, it's his property, and he can do that. That's what he wants to do. He sees them on the tree line, and he made no bones about it. He told us that he shoots them. He shoots at them. Now, I will say this about him. He openly admits he probably has PTSD. In fact, he didn't openly admit that. I'm lying about that. I said, hey, do you think you had? He says, probably. But then again, do you think he even knows what PTSD is? I don't know, because he's not a very refined individual, and I don't got to worry about him watching my show because he doesn't watch. He doesn't have the intranets. So he's one of those old school vatos, okay, as you would say. Dragon's breath. There you go. And yeah, watch John Wick, the last John Wick. That's the kind of stuff that this guy would be into. But those are, rounds that people, like, that are serious. They're serious as heck, and he believes they work because they light things on fire. Now, he said, and what he's told us, and I'll quote, he says, the only thing you can do with these things is kill them with fire. He says that's all that kills them. He said that you could literally shoot them all day long, but killing them with fire is pretty much the only way you're going to get rid of them. That's what he says. Okay, so my guest was calling me. Make sure he knows what's going on. Okay, so I think we've reached an agreement with Chad Lewis. So I think he thought that he was out of our price range or something. No, you're okay. See, what he assumed was that here at Paranormal Roundtable, we are poor people.
No, peasants.
Yes, it's not us at all. But by the way, we need donations. But no, we are not poor. We are not poor. Chad, we are not poor. Paranormal Roundtable people are very wealthy.
We are not one of the little people.
Donations
They
are
are very
appreciated.
wealthy in knowledge, what they lack in monetary funds.
Here in my garage with my 7 bookshelves.
I am very wealthy in knowledge up here. And is it just me, or is every day our dog starting to look more like Will Ferrell, dude? It's really starting to disturb me, dude. We got to bring Bean back on the show. Bean back on the show, because she's starting to look like Will Ferrell. My nephew, Anthony's brother, Palito, he came to the house, and he says, your dog looks like Will Ferrell. And I started looking at her today, and I was like, because first she just looked like a little ball, but she kind of looked like chicken fried steak, and then she kind of looked like a chicken drumstick, fried drumstick. So we started calling her chicken fried. And then as she got older and bigger and her head turned more into a helmet, have you ever seen the episode of Chin Poco Man on South Park? She looks like Lambtron. Go look that up. It's crazy. But she also, now that she's getting even bigger, she's starting to look less like a chicken fried steak and more like Will Ferrell. And the top of her hair is turning like light, getting real light colored. And she's got like hair all the way around her eyes, so she looks like a little teddy bear, but she looks like a Will Ferrell teddy bear.
Yeah, I saw her doing stand-up the other day, so she's getting there.
She does hop around on her hind legs a lot. But anyway, it's freaking me out, dude. I'm just like, dude, what is Will Ferrell doing in my living room, running around on all fours, dressed like a teddy bear? But yeah, so Will Ferrell, yeah, there you go. What I'm going to tell you though, if you do go out into the bush and you have this thought that you're going to look for these creatures, I will say this: if there is an area, and I'm giving you this as an absolute warning from what I know to be the truth. Okay, this is the truth for me. If these creatures are described, okay, and I'm being very serious here, and they're described as, werewolf-looking creatures, and they have the backward bent legs. I'm not saying that, it's all good, that's all good, you're good to go. They're not going to hurt you, not going to kill you. What I'm going to tell you is that I have gotten reports of them just being, malicious. I've gotten reports of them being like in between malicious and not malicious, and sometimes just not malicious. They're not really doing anything. They're not harming anybody. They're just there. Now, if you go out there and it's just an ape-like creature that has the flat face, whatever, go look at the poster on the Paranormal Roundtable conference, whatever. You can see what I'm talking about, the picture. That's a Bigfoot. You might not have a problem. They might be there. They might be angry. They might be aggressive. They might yell at you. They may, who knows? But if you come across a creature, and I'm telling you this with all sincerity, that has the body of just a Bigfoot body, with a short muzzle and a big head, that what people call, or some people are calling, the gugwi, I would be very, very careful, very leery. And I had this conversation with Adam Davies earlier, and I was telling him briefly about some cases that we had covered near Brenham and Giddings area, and one up near Chapel Hill, and it goes from Brenham all the way through that corridor. If you go look on a map on 290, Highway 290, the stories you get out of there are pretty incredible. Of these things, like one killed a horse, twisting off a steer, breaking the neck of a steer. Literally one of them was shot at, and it retaliated in a big way. Like it tore down the hog pen and let the man's hogs out and killed several of them. Now, these kind of stories, this is what this gugwi creature does. I would hazard to guess that this gugwi creature has probably been around for a long time, just like Bigfoot, just like Dogman. But what the heck is it? I don't know. And that is the question. I can't answer that. I did a show with Ryan. I forgot what his show was called. He was never consistent with it. I don't work with Ryan anymore. I'm just going to clear the air. Somebody asked me about that. It's nothing personal. I'm not making it personal. I just don't, because there was no consistency, and I just couldn't. We couldn't pin him down.
Yeah, we just parted ways. Yeah,
we parted ways, and I just, I have no problem with Ashley. She's got a show. She does what she does. I have no problem with her. She's welcome to come to the conference if she wants to and be on the panel. I don't care. I know that Ryan, though, I could never pin him down. But when he did work with me, he did good work, and he did good research. It's not like the potential wasn't there. It's just that it didn't materialize. But he did a lot of work, and we did a show about the Gugwe on his show. I think it was called a Nightmare Scream. No,
Whisper to a Scream.
A Whisper to a Scream. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it, but he talks about the Gugwe, and I do too, on one of those episodes. And I went in and I gave that particular episode a bunch of my reports. I don't have any off the top of my head or in front of me. But I can tell you one, that there was a rancher out on the other side of Caldwell, Texas, and now we get dogman reports galore going up that highway. Look up the highway going from Rockdale to Caldwell, and see, because that corridor right there, so one of y'all could look up that highway. We get reports out of that area. I forgot the name of the highway. But there's Gugwe reports, and we had a couple rakes, and then I went on Reddit. Somebody had sent me to Reddit, and I found a couple more. And then a guy that we worked with recently got me in touch with his friend.
It's called Highway 36.
Highway 36. I remember even as a kid back in the 80s that there was rumors of a creature killing livestock up and down that area. And I remember as a kid thinking, oh, wow, it's Bigfoot, because I didn't know much about it. And then I just kind of shrugged my shoulders like, oh, well. It never popped into my head that it was a demonic werewolf-looking creature that I would see when I was 15. I never had didn't have the foggiest idea. I say that, and then Jessica, just the Cryptid hunter, she says there are reportedly Gugwe hiding in the fog at Yellowstone National Park and taking hikers. Yeah, and then there's these bear-looking men. Do you have the Gugwe-looking creature that Alec put on here?
Let me see. It's a transition. Let me see.
It's a transition, so just go and go to it.
Let me see if it works.
Transition back and
there it is, right there. Yep. Now, if you see something that looks like that, or if you hear reports of something that looks like that, I'm appealing to you, to every fiber of as the truth. I'm trying to tell you the absolute truth. Don't go out in the woods looking for this thing, please, because whatever that is, it is extremely violent and extremely aggressive, and it will kill you. Okay, they are connected to disappearances and all kinds of other crap, and so it makes people wonder if it's possible that these things are actually being genetically modified. Because if you took a bear and a wolf and a gorilla and threw them in a blender, you would just get a big mess. I mean, it would just be gross. And I'm joking, folks. No, if you put them in a genetic blender and you produced a creature, that's what you would get. And I'm not joking. It looks like something from hell. Ben Foyle Hat, I like your handle, by the way. Thank you for that donation. That's awesome. Thank you for helping support the show. Hope to see you at the conference. Everybody, just steer clear of this thing. I'm telling you right now, because I care about people, I care about my listeners, and I laid there in bed the other day and I thought about it long and hard. I had listened to someone's near-death experience. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'll bring this all together, okay? I know what I'm pitching here, okay? I'm going to throw that fastball. Here we go. Now, the thing is, hold on one second.
I'm going to pitch that fastball. Hold on one second.
Yeah. I was going to throw it, and I balked. Runner takes his base. No, what I'm going to tell you, though, is that this creature is something that you would not, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you would not want to encounter this thing because it wherever it goes and wherever it is, it always seems to destroy. Now, you'll get reports of Bigfoot. They're just there. They might take your chickens. They might kill your cows. They may chase you, whatever. But in some cases, they will assault you. They'll try to kill you.
That's aggressive. Yeah.
But it's not 100% of the time like this creature. And in Dogman, same thing. They're there. Even the ones they call fatheads that still have the backward bent legs, they'll kill, they'll chase, they'll maim, they'll do whatever, but they're not what this thing is. Whatever this thing is, it seems to be something that
it's not a guarantee.
It's like a nightmare creature.
Yeah. That a bad situation is gonna happen if you run into a dogman. But with this thing, it seems like every situation seems to be a nightmare one.
Yeah, there's no good, like, whatever. Oh, I just stared at it, stared at me, and it just walked its own way, and, you know, whatever. The picture of the Beast of Seven Shoots, I don't know what to think of that. I've been given so many different opinions about it. People tell me, oh, that's a gugweed, and it's holding a little dog. I don't know. I don't know. And then some people say it's a guy holding a camera, and they're everybody's super convinced that they're right. I don't know what to think of that. I don't make assumptions that I can't prove. Okay? Just like I don't demand things that I can't take by force. I don't do that. Susie Jago, I see you in the chat. Thank you so much for that donation. And by the way, I mailed off your package today. We got everybody except for
Fab Welder, I believe.
Fab Welder. You didn't give me a full address. You gave me the name of your town, and that's it.
Thank you, Fistful of Groovy, as well, for that donation.
Yeah. So, but thank you for that donation. And so somebody said that shirt is kind of huge. Well, I'm kind of a huge guy.
I think they might be talking about me.
Oh, they're talking about you? The shirt is gigantic, and it's a small. Okay. All right, so I'm going to call my guest. We're going to stop with the Gugwe right there, and we're going to go to the guest, and maybe we can ask him, see what he thinks of all this.
Thank you, Jay and Brenda, for those donations.
Yep. Thank you so much. Can you hear it? I can barely hear it.
All right,
Hello.
Hey, Dan, are you there?
I am.
Okay. All right, just making sure that was you and not your doppelganger trying to trick us.
No, I have no doppelganger. I've got Danny Nedrolo, and then I've got Dina.
Okay, there you go. And so you tell us about yourself. Tell us what you do, and give the folks the full the 411 on you.
Okay, so we're on right now.
Yep, we sure are.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, I'm Dan Nedrolo, and I started getting interested in hairy bipeds when I was in 5th grade. And coincidentally, I'm an old guy, and that happened to be in '67. My 5th grade teacher mentioned the word abominable snowman, and I was lit up because I like giant primates, mountain gorillas, etc., in some of the zoos. And I started reading everything I could possibly find in whatever bibliography of cryptids we had. And of course, it started with Ivan T. Sanderson's Abominable Snowman legend come to life.
Oh, yeah.
One thing led to another. Pretty soon we had a picture of Patty in the newspapers, and I grabbed everything I could find, but I couldn't find adults to talk about it seriously. I had an incident in 7th grade where we had something very loud lakeside in North Pine Woods, Wisconsin, and it was sidestepping all the flashlights from the students in the church camp, and that led me on to more wildlife studies and a degree in basically vertebrate zoology with an emphasis in wildlife out of UW-Stevens Point, and I ended up working as a biologist around the state and as a zookeeper and doing programs, speaking engagements all over the Midwest and from California to North Carolina. I worked for the National Wildlife Federation and eventually did wildlife surveys, assessment work for different organizations like the Department of the Army, Highway Department, Department of Natural Resources, and then private entities doing environmental assessments for roads and bridges and development. Never lost out on the Sasquatch stuff. In 2000, my mom passed. My sister made a bet that I wouldn't get online, didn't like computers, and I ended up asking a lot of questions and joining the BFRO for Bigfoot Field Research Organization under Matthew Moneymaker for 4 years. And I learned a lot, got to meet some of the people like John Green, who wrote some of the books that interested me in the project in the first place. And I started doing interviews in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and eventually going to these places as far as Tennessee and California. And started to have vocalization experiences and finding tracks and getting secondary evidence mailed into us so that we could see, possibilities. since then, I've become independent, and my network is vast, coast to coast, some Europe, some Asia, some Australia. And I've been fortunate enough to travel through 44 states, done Australia, Tasmania, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and parts of Canada, with big plans for Alaska and hopefully Peru, Ecuador, and numerous other places. And I am a professional photographer. I'm published in over 150 books and magazines. And how's that?
Excuse me?
I said, how's that?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a heck of a resume. So let me ask you this: like when
Sure.
you were in all these countries, was that to look for Bigfoot, or what was it? What were you doing?
Basically, I'm a herpetologist, so I spent a lot of time doing it, and also a wildlife photographer. So that was the bulk of it. But I always had different goals in mind regarding trying to find people and places that had reports. And so when I was in Australia, I did get a chance to go to some of the places that there were reports of yowies. And although I didn't run into anybody or have any experiences over there, I finally, about 2010, started to have them in Wisconsin and in other states. In 2018, I was just coming back from Texas and stopped at Shane Carpenter's place because we'd been talking for a couple of years, actually, and he's got Ozark Mountain Sasquatch, and so I have joined his team, he and Randy Harrington, and we also have Gary Schutte with us, and we're extremely interested in continuing research in the private property that he calls the 400, and now we're working farther in other states as well. And I'm maintaining some locations here in Wisconsin that I'm watching long term, and going to be stepping up the footprint work and the audio as well.
Yeah, one of the listeners, Angelique Benham, has been a listener for a long time. She says his photography is amazing. So is that true? Is your photography amazing?
I like to think so. I'm just in the process of starting the marketing aspect of it, but I have many thousand wildlife photographs stemming from actually the late 70s. So I was in the Kodachrome rush back in the day.
Whenever you go out and you look, because like earlier in the show, I don't know if you were listening, but we were talking about a creature that looks like a cross between a dogman and a Bigfoot. That's the only way I could describe it, because that's how people describe it to me and my colleagues. And of course, the name that people give it, the Gugui, I don't know where that name even comes from. I've done research on it and done shows about it with another researcher. We did a show about it on his channel, but I don't know that that's what I don't know really what it is. Have you heard of this creature?
I have, and actually I've got Dogman Mystery that I inherited about almost 10 years ago, and it's interesting. I've talked to Angelique a little bit about some of these things, and she's clued me in a little with some of her network, and I'm in the process of, although I'm studying Sasquatch primarily, one of the reasons I accepted the Dogman Mystery Group was simply I knew I'd get more Sasquatch reports. Yeah. Well, it's true, but it goes well beyond that, as you know, because there are other things out there. And what's really interesting is I've got a property here in Wisconsin that has over 20 different observations from people associated with that area, the family, their friends, neighbors, who have seen or what they call the black hairy thing. And it runs fast, and it's Sasquatch by design, but it's got a bare snout. It doesn't have a flat profile. But everything it does is very Sasquatch related, from the standpoint of climbing on buildings to opening doors and letting horses out and things of that nature. This thing seems to have an attraction for a couple of the kids that grew up there. It doesn't seem to be aggressive or violent in any way, but it's got a bare snout. And I haven't seen it, but I've got plenty of good descriptions from private individuals over time that have. Some think it's a dog man, some don't. I don't know. But I do know that the variation and the different species that fall under the term dogman, my goodness. I was just talking to another friend of mine tonight, and I see there's a general reference to them as 7 different types. I can name 5 different types. There was a big not Wolverine, but a big hyena thing over in New Mexico that a friend of mine's friend hit and totaled his vehicle. I may have mentioned that to you previously before before you hooked me up with me. And, I talked to a gal in Florida that had a vertical one that would walk on 2 legs, and it had raccoon-like paws in front. It was very keen-eyed, almost coyote-looking. And then I've got another friend of mine who's seen something that is in the southeastern part of the country that he'd swear is a baboon. I talked to one of Linda Godfrey's witnesses, and I asked her about the baboon possibility, and she thought that actually made as much sense as anything. Some of the illustrations that I've seen also look extremely primate. So this mystery continues, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Now, because I was talking earlier to Adam Davies. I'm sure you know who that is. And
oh, I sure do.
Yeah, and me and Adam are friends, and we talked at the Jefferson conference. I'd finally met him face to face, and then we've been corresponding. Adam's a very interesting guy. He's like you. He's traveled, very well traveled. I've traveled all over too, but for different reasons.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's really crazy when we were talking about this. There is something that I was really, really certain of, and it came up in the conversation with him earlier, that I think is the Dinopithecus. And I was going through Mason County, Texas. If you look it up on a map, I really believe, and Tony and Anthony, we've talked about this before. We fielded a report of some kids, it was several years ago, and they were shooting fireworks, and they got in the back of their truck. And they're teenagers. They're going to do what teenagers do. And they're randomly shooting Roman candles out the back. They live out in the country. I mean, I've been there. I've done that. Not at that, but when I lived out in the country, me and my friend Keith, we would
do stupid stuff.
We did. We lit a pasture on fire one time with fireworks, so it's not unheard of to do. But they shot into the side of some foliage on a dirt road, gravel road, right outside of town, and it got the attention of something that came out, and it chased their truck. Now, I've told this story. I don't know if it was on PRT or on another show, and it chased him. And then another one came out, and it was a little bit smaller. When they were given, when the one guy who's now a grown up, when he was a kid when this happened, but he was giving me a description, I was sitting there going like, dude, this sounds like a baboonish type creature, right, Tony? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we were, and so when I got all the details I could out of them, I didn't talk to the other witnesses until finally about 6 months ago. One of them came, I'd got in touch with them, and because out of the blue, the guy said, hey, the guy, he came to town, and because it's Mason, people don't stay there, they move out, and he said when he came back, he was in the Navy. And he was gracious enough to talk to me. And then I got another encounter from his wife, but that was a Sasquatch that she had seen years ago in Idaho. So I got a twofer, but I was talking to him, and he said that thing that we saw, he's like, dude, it looked like it could have been a cross between a baboon and a wolf. That's the way he described it to me. And then later on, I ended up getting another report right outside in Mason County, but not in Mason. Now, as fate would have it, I'm going to do a show on Tuesday. I'm going to release an episode, but that episode, I'm giving everybody the heads up here. It's basically hotels in Texas, people having terrifying encounters, and it's not just ghosts; it's other stuff too. And one of them involves somebody having a stay in Mason. It kind of brings it home for me because I'm sitting there going like, "Holy crap!" When this person told me where they were at, I thought there's got to be something there that these people see, and the same thing like with Hyco, Texas. I've had a couple reports on the outskirts of out in the countryside, people seeing these dogman looking creatures, but one of them looked almost like a bear, and they were like, but it wasn't a bear. They said the legs were tapered down. Yeah, and so when you get these reports in these country, these areas, and that area outside of Waco, west of Waco, There's a whole bunch of reports I got out there of a mixture of Bigfoot and Dogman. And if you go Devil's Backbone, if you ever get a chance to come out this way, Dan, I'm telling you, man, me and Ken, we could take you there, because in between here and San Antonio, there's a whole bunch of reports out west. Now, if you go to Devil's Backbone, it's almost like they're segregated. The east is where the Bigfoot reports are. You go further west, and it's all Dogman. And literally,
That's
me and my
really
brother.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's weird how that rounds out, because we put together a map like 15 years ago. And we were putting I believe it was the Dogman was red and the Bigfoot was blue, or vice versa. I can't remember. And I said, would you look at that? You can see how right in the middle, there's a little bit of integration, and then the colors completely
purple, man.
Yeah. And then it kind of just separates, and then there's only like one encounter of Bigfoot in the west. And then, the same thing in the east. There was like one Dogman encounter, but the rest was all just those particular. And then right there on Purgatory Road,
real interesting.
There's a story of a black goat-man looking creature that multiple people have seen. So, yeah, it is interesting how that place is very intriguing. I've had people see many times Civil War soldiers just wandering around out there, and they look like they're lost or something. And people see Comanches and Apaches, and they see all kinds of stuff. And of course, there was a show that was very popular, Unsolved Mysteries, the original one. I forgot his name, the guy that was the host. But anyway, he that particular show, the original, they did a show about Devil's Backbone, and it is a very haunted place. And if you go out there, man, it'll creep you out. You'll hear stuff, you'll see stuff. It's crazy. But the Dogman Bigfoot stuff is very real out there. The activity.
I've got a couple more for you. I've got a good friend. She doesn't want her name out, but she did not give. She, like me, initially gave no credence whatsoever to any upright canine reports, and she saw what she thought was a Sasquatch, and she got in close. And this was actually on the edge of Dallas, within city limits, at night, deep, dark, creepy road. And here, not too far from the road, was this big Hulkster just sitting there. And she got in, her lights hit it, and she got the snout. And it had ears that were not Sasquatch ears, very canine-like. But it was very, very Sasquatch in body. And I can't remember who the source was, but I got another reference to somebody was in an old building. And again, this is in or near Dallas. And there was an older building, and they were going through, and by golly, if there wasn't an upright canine of some sort, there was just, he come around a corner, and then there was like an open window type area, and all of a sudden there's a face looking at him. And it was canine by nature, and it was tall. It was well over 5 and probably pushing 7 feet in height. And it didn't approach him, and he certainly left as fast as he could go. But I know there's tons of reports out there, and it's just, for me, initially it was hard to get people to detail, to talk. But the trust is continuing, and Josh, I'll be talking to you a lot more in the future. You mentioned Ken, and I'd first met Ken in 2018 in Texas. And what's real interesting here is, at the time we were talking, we had a guy approach us, and he was talking to us about a Dogman report out of Europe. Well, I don't know how much credence you give that, but what was interesting is I talked to him further, and it turned out to be more of a wild man, flat face type deal. So I always wonder how many of these reports are in low light. You've got a really nervous individual. You've got a short duration of time. And then on top of it, you might not be able to see it as well as you'd like to. And then you also have to deal with the memory. So some of these reports are pretty iffy. But on the other hand, can I ask, how are you doing on tracks?
As far as like getting prints of tracks?
Yeah.
I don't collect them or anything like that.
We're bombarded with Sasquatch tracks, and I'm just wondering, are we coming up with very many alleged upright canine Dogman type tracks?
Oh, there's a lot of people that do. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
sure.
Yeah, I'm answering the question. Yeah, there's a lot of people that do get those, and they give me pictures of them all the time. The problem is, and I have a Facebook group like you had. I met you through the White Bigfoot project.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
and that's because my wife has a big white Bigfoot encounter when she was young. Her and her brother.
And I need to talk to her. Yes.
Yeah, and we've never and she was supposed to be go on. I think Dark Waters had set it up for Wes Germer, and then we're real busy. And I'd love to be on Wes's show and talk Bigfoot, and she would too, but we're just very busy. And
oh, sure, of course.
We're just. I run a company, and that's all I can do to keep this going. And with the conference coming up, it's like holy crap. But the white Bigfoot thing, we'll get to that in a minute. But so what I get is a bunch of pictures of tracks. Now, if I put them on my Facebook group, the problem is that people are going to go, that's a dog, blah blah blah, and then I am the butt of everybody's joke. So I don't put photos.
Exactly.
I got a bunch of photos, dude. Tony, you can attest to this. We get pictures all the time.
Of everything, really, of all sorts of things.
All sorts of the goblin thing we got recently.
I mean, I got sent a couple of videos of orbs and stuff like that people see, and of just like security cameras of all kinds of things.
But if we post them in the groups, now me and Anthony had kicked around the idea of starting a group just for pictures, and then Anthony, I believe you vetoed it by saying, you know what they're going to do. They're going to say that we're crazy, and so, it doesn't matter. If they get a picture, you could have one just pure as day, and they'll be like, oh, that's AI, or there's no way you can win with those pictures. So
that's altered somehow. I mean,
yeah, we let people post pictures, and I approve it most of the time, but even approving them, I get attacked. I'll be like, why did you let this guy circle red blobs and blah, blah, blah? And then I get, just lampooned and lambasted. So I just don't mess with the pictures. And I do have a ton of pictures of tracks. Now, we'll say this, Dan, and I'll say this, and this being honest truth. I'm sitting here, serious business in front of everybody on here. And this thing will probably get 10, 12,000 views when it's all said and done in the next 2 weeks. I will tell you right now, I have seen a video that I believe was not doctored years ago. It was a few years ago, not years and years ago, but a few years ago. And it was a colleague of mine that sent it. He said, what do you think of this? And I didn't have permission to save it or share it. Sure. But I got to look at it. And it was a rancher up in California, and it looked legit to me. Like somebody had said, hey, check this out. And when I did, I thought that looks a whole hell of a lot like what I saw when I was 15. Yep. Cool. And I can remember what I saw like it was yesterday. I just sent the rendition of what. So Sibylla Irwin, I don't know if you know Sibylla, but she's
very well. She's one of my artists.
She's awesome, isn't she? So she's going to be doing work on my book. And so she's been doing some pictures, and I'm going to be working with her. So I'll be going down to San Antonio and meeting with her and Ken next week once I'm done with this freaking tax nightmare and get it over with.
I know. Between her and Alexa Evans, they were my first two go-to gals, and now we're getting more people as well. But it's just nice to have the technical concern, and these gals nail it beautifully. Yeah, I couldn't possibly say enough about how good Sibylla and Alex are. So.
Yeah. Oh, I like Sibylla. Yeah. I got to meet her face to face and hang out with her in Jefferson at the conference in Jefferson. The Jefferson conference was not bad. Yeah, the conference itself was not. It wasn't. The people that were there to talk and the people that were there to were. It was the venue wasn't the best, and getting out there was like a nightmare, dude. I think we did 1,000 turns to get out there. Wouldn't be my first choice to for a conference, but
yeah, we were talking about it. We were saying like we did our conference in Paris, Tennessee, and that somehow felt easier to drive to than
it was
Jefferson.
Like, me and Lyle were talking about it. It was like a straight shot out there.
Yeah, it was weird.
He goes, it's a 10-hour trip, but I rode with Lyle Blackburn, and we just talked on the way out there all the way back, and it was like nothing.
That's gentle. That's chilly there.
Yeah, it was easy. But that.
No, I come for that Jefferson one in 2018. Man, I got a late start, and I ended up driving straight from Wisconsin all the way down, and I made it by 30 minutes. So,
oh wow,
that was a Zoom.
Yeah, that conference there, and then Barton was with me, and we were in two different vehicles, and he we couldn't believe how many turns there were. And so Barton Nunley, he's a good friend of mine, and we were there at that conference, and we were tired. I mean, like when we got to the conference in Tennessee, we were awake and alive. Just going out to Jefferson was like 3.5, 4 hours. We felt like we'd been run over by, a freight train, and we were all tired the next day. Me and Barton were both kind of grumpy, but meeting Sibylla, just getting to talk to her and Adam Davies was worth the trip. I was glad to go out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If I just had the opportunity to sit down and talk with those two for 24 hours, and I'll include you and your group of guys, I'm there. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Well, absolutely. You can if you come down to the conference. Come down in September, September 1st, 2nd, 3rd. You got to come down. Mm-hmm. You come down, and we'll fit you in. We'll squeeze you in, or you can be the panel. It's whatever you want to do. It's your choice. Okay. Because
we got a lot of talking to do, Josh. Mm-hmm. Glad to. Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I mentioned you about 2 years ago to Ken. Now, me and Ken have been working pretty close together for the last about 4 years. And so I told Ken, I was like, what do you know about Dan Nadrilla? And he told me, because you had the White Bigfoot Project. And I had somebody who, I have so many stories, and I've been digging, trying to find this one. But somebody, and if you're out there listening, please get back in touch with me. I know you don't want your name, whatever, but if you could just get back in touch with me so I could get that story reiterated to me, because it's in my mind. But they were coming back from out of state somewhere, and they had gotten to Williamson County, which is Central Texas.
Sure.
And the person said that they were a kid, and they were with their dad, and they saw what looked like pieces of some sort of roadkill scattered all over the side of the road right outside of Cedar Park. And it's funny because it's not funny, but like I drove right through that area when we were coming back. We were coming back from California, wasn't it, Anthony?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about that case, and we were coming back through from California. I was trying to get out of California as fast as I could, but coming back from there, and I remember seeing like in that general area where he had given me the story. And then I talked to David Weatherly. I had just right after I had gotten that report, David and me had talked, and I said, I got this report. What do you think about this? And he was like, dude, he's of the opinion, just like I am, that it was what it was a white Sasquatch that had been torn into pieces.
Really?
Torn into pieces. And this guy, he sent me this story over the messenger on Facebook Messenger. I get a lot of stories there, and I get a lot of stories through email and everywhere else. And I also get them out of groups and stuff.
Sure.
And
sure.
Try to stay away from Reddit, because you just never know what you're going to get on there. But I get a lot of stories, and then the NADP. I was good friends with them, and now the IDP, and so I get stories from all over. But this particular story was given to me by a listener, and they had sent it to me, and they said when they were I believe they said they were a kid, and him and his dad got out of the vehicle, and they looked, and he saw the head, everything. It looked like a giant ape-like creature that had been ripped apart, and the fur was white. And I had just gotten that report, and then later that day I talked to David, and I believe it was like last year when I got that report, and then David said the only thing that could do that is another Sasquatch.
That's about it.
Yeah, or a dog man, but that's I don't know, because the way the guy described it when he was a kid, he said it was big, it was large. And he said that it was scary to think that something had torn it apart like that. He said it didn't look like it had been hit by a vehicle, like it was ripped into pieces. Now, you having studied the white Bigfoot phenomena, what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, regardless of the color, these things have a capability of being potentially vicious, aggressive, or territorial, or worse. And, I don't have a big, massive amount of understanding with the canine creatures, but I've got a pretty good feel for what I call the target species complex, and that would be the Sasquatches. And agreed. I mean, there's plenty of stories of aggression between them. I've got a friend of mine from Arkansas. Her son had seen one under a bridge missing an arm.
Wow.
And apparently, and we presume that would have been amputated in some way, and perhaps by another individual. You know, and we had. I'll give you an example of power. I became friends with one of the rangers at Yellowstone National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 80s, he had two Sasquatch experiences that he came across, and he had two grizzly bears that were just found laying. Apparently, they were. There wasn't a thing wrong with them, and there wasn't a bluff or a mountainside that they would have fallen off of, but it's just as though they were just killed by, I don't know, maybe a hand over the nose or something like that, where they just passed away, just died. There wasn't a mark on them. They didn't have a broken neck. They didn't have any of that. And of course, in Dr. Let's see. I forgot his name at the moment. But anyway, Raincoast Sasquatch, Dr. J. Robert Alley. He describes hunters finding bears with broken feet and things of that nature, and even a big black bear that was taken and buried. So we know that there's some bear Sasquatch interactions, but these were a big grizzly, and they were just laying out in the field, just dead. And so if that was Sasquatch related, we know how much power we're dealing with. The reports that he had was he had a foreigner call in and wanting to know about the colors of grizzly bears. And in this case, it was a blonde one and very, very lightly colored, almost white. And of course, his response was, well, that's a pretty unusual color for a grizzly. They're usually much darker. And she said, well, this was walking around on two legs carrying grass, and it was going to and fro. And he said right away, well, they don't do that. And then she thought he was calling her a liar. She became upset. And anyway, he reported the situation to the front office, and the next day that whole area was closed down. And in the other situation, it was rangers that were concerned about the trophy bull elk. And so in the southeastern part of the park, they were down there watching, for poachers and stuff. And some of the things that started happening to them were large roars, large vocalizations or loud, and then also trees being pushed down across the roads and a lot of rocks being thrown. These guys freaked out and left, and eventually the park closed that down too. So as far as speed and power go, I'd say you're right. Another Sasquatch.
That's so scary to think about. I heard of the story at Yosemite National Park where one of the park rangers somebody had given this person who was an off-duty police officer at the time, and they were camping there, and them and their children witnessed two coyotes impaled on a tree. What's crazy though is that it was like between 15 and 20 feet up. And there's nothing that can do that. A bear isn't going to take a coyote and impale it on a tree. Right. And so it was, obviously it was kind of as a warning, like, hey, sure, don't come, Sure. The old timers here in Texas now, we used to have a lot of problems with coyotes, and back they'll tell you there wasn't no wolves, but that's not true. There were wolves here in Texas when I was a kid, and I'm telling you the honest truth. Right outside of Rockdale, I ran into a pack of them. When we were out there shooting our guns off, and we heard, sure, howling, and it wasn't like coyotes at all. I knew what they sounded like. I was raised in the sticks for 15 years of my life. They sure came up into the holler where we were at. We were camping in there, and you could clearly see how big these creatures were, and they were wolves. They were obviously timber wolves. There was only 4 of them, but you could definitely see one was the alpha, and we had firepower. I was 14. Sure. Shouldn't have been out there at that age, but my dad worked, the graveyard shift, and I was spending the night at my one friend's house, and he was spending the night at the other friend's house. So we did that game, and so we were all out in the pasture out there shooting. And, sure, anything that moved, we were like scared because we shouldn't have been out there. And the oldest kid was like 16, and they were wolves. And so I'm telling you, the old timers said the one way to deal with them is if you kill one, you hang it on the barbed wire fence or you hang it up on a tree as a warning. And that these canines are smart. They'll stay away because they sure see that and they know better. So something knows that, and it did that. But what is going to climb up into a tree and do that? And the only thing I could think of would be a squatch. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, a cougar potentially, but not that type of behavior.
No.
And typically, cougar don't actually take the prey up in the air. They usually bury it. So, leopards, sure. Cougar, no. So,
but impaling it too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It just, I was in Nebraska working with some of the locals there, and we have Harriet McFeely has her Bigfoot conference out there. So I was helping her over the years, and I met an old fire. It was like a well, anyway, he would have been a local town fireman and kind of the head of that department. And basically, he had a couple of Sasquatch stories, and one of them was using older buildings. And the fellow, anyway, entered the building to find that there was a deer carcass upstairs, partially eaten. And the outside window of the outside boarded window was that the board was all ripped off. So you just wonder how many confrontations people might have in older abandoned buildings, whether upright canines or Sasquatches. I've got a friend in Ohio, and she said that her best friend lost her dad. And how that happened was they found him dead in a granary with his eyes punched back. As though fingers went into the eyes. Now, don't know if that was related or not, but you get those stories about like the older settlers, for example, and they'd be like found dead sitting on a stump with a twisted rifle sitting right next by it. And I know David Paulides has got some stories and reports of things that sound very Sasquatchy too, at least described by some observers. When they found the body or whatever. So we definitely have things that are pretty wild and crazy going on around us. Unfortunately, hopefully there's places that have that negative type energy, negative history that's maybe even repeatable. But isn't it amazing where we are with all the technology we have, and we've just got a fraction of what there is to learn?
And I guess that's the rub, because, doing my show and doing what I've been doing, and I'm writing 2 books, and one of them is focusing on Bigfoot, and I'm almost completed. The thing about the Bigfoot phenomena is that it's not like, you got these 2 camps. You got apers and then people that believe there's other stuff going on. And now I don't discredit or discount apers. I believe that could be going on. But there's definitely something else going on, because if you would have asked me 10 years ago about Dogman, I would have told you it's a flesh and blood creature, because what I saw looked flesh and blood.
Well, sure.
Then I go back and I talk to my friend's brother, and what he saw looked different than what we saw, only in the way that when it walked by the window, it had like a vapor coming off of its neck.
Okay.
And then that changed my, whole perception of it. I was like, well, that's what he saw. And then, of course, it's 2019 when I asked him this, and I said, why didn't you tell me this? And he said, you never asked. And I was like, I was wrongfully assumed that we all saw the same thing.
There you go. Here's a couple for you as far as situations where science needs to catch up. I was visiting a friend of mine last December, and it was actually 2 days after Christmas, and the temperature was 22 degrees. And we walked 11 miles that day. That night we did 3, and we hit this pine stand area, and I started smelling flowers. I don't know exactly what kind, but there were flowers, and it was a strong scent. The wind about 15 miles an hour. Again, the temperature 22 degrees. Flowers? Well, what was real interesting about that was I had 2 digital recorders, and both of them became non-functional at about the same time, and it was right in that same episode of where I was smelling the flowers. We did have wood knocks, and I got some very cattle-like odd vocalizations in that area. Plus, there was other potential field sign of force manipulation, which some people give credence to and others don't. Um, in addition to that, I'd seen where she was doing some trading, and for example, there'd be like a raccoon skull up on a branch, and she would take it down, put it down in the tussocks of the swamp, and then several days later, it would be back up on that branch. Now, I've had squirrels move deer skulls around before and fool us. So nature can do a lot of things, but that was one example. I'll give you another one. I became friends with a friend with a gal in Georgia in 2008, and eventually I went down there. Got to know her pretty well. There were tracks. There were vocalizations. So I learned a lot. I'm back. I'm always telling her, if you have any problems or any questions or concerns, give me a call. 2:00 in the morning, the phone goes. She is angry. And I'm like, what's up? And she said, how come you didn't tell me their eyes light up? I'm like, explain further. There were 3 of them this time. They were looking out the window. They're outside looking in the window at me, and the one in back, it's like his eyes were lighting up my room. Okay. And she's really upset. It's like, why didn't you tell me they did this? Well, at the time, I didn't know for sure that was the case. And also, I was trying to not agitate her and calm her down. And so the only thing I could think of was, I didn't think you were ready for this kind of information. Luckily, it worked, and she calmed down. But there's another example of so much that we don't know, and that we get repeated descriptions of the same thing. Another one, for example, some of these dog men and their red glowing eyes, or Sasquatches with red glowing eyes. And I do have a couple of friends that had seen an individual actually have different eye colors go from one color, like white to blue to red, and then back to blue or whatever. Is that real? Is that really happening? I haven't seen it, but it continues to be described. So, comments?
I get a lot of reports of red eyes. I get a lot of reports, like people. I mean, and the reason that I think somebody asked me this recently, it was one of my listeners, and she was and she asked me why I thought that some of the Bigfoot, she didn't say anything about the dogman, but just Bigfoot, why did it have red eyes? And I told her, I said, that's one of the reasons why I think that there's more going on here than what we, because, I get a report of somebody in a hotel room in Houston, and this person was just like, they were a truck driver, but they were really tired. They turned their rig in, whatever, to their company that they were working for, and they went into the hotel room. I'm not going to give it all away because it's going to be on part of the show on Tuesday. But sure. They see this thing with red glowing eyes. It wakes them up. They get woken up out of a dead sleep. This poor guy had been driving for 16 hours, and he's like, I'm going to, give myself a break here, and I'm going to sleep in a hotel room instead of the truck. And he turns his truck in, and then he goes and gets a hotel, and he crashes, and then he gets woken up by something with glowing red eyes. A hunter up in Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula, same thing. He's this thing with red eyes is stalking him all night. He asked me what the heck it is, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. But, you got the same thing that a truck driver, renting a hotel room in Houston, he's seeing the same thing you are, but you're out in the middle of the woods hunting.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like, and there's this, people like to say, well, those are two different things. One of them's a Sasquatch and the other one's a demon. Why do they both have the red eyes, and why are they both looking the same? That's the question that people aren't. There's no answer.
Yeah, what constitutes them different? What makes them different?
Yeah. Or the dogman we talked about earlier outside of Portland, Oregon, in the suburbs. This guy lived in the suburbs. Well, it was a newer subdivision at that time for a few years, over a decade ago. But a few weeks of shenanigans by this entity or dogman, whatever it was. But, it was doing things like, I didn't get into the whole story because I'm going to put that on a Tuesday show in a couple weeks. But what it was, something that was messing with him. And it appeared on the surface to be a werewolf-looking creature.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it gets deeper because, there were some neighborhood kids and they started having, they were malicious little turds from what he was telling me. They had done some things, but they were also playing with Ouija boards and they were going out into the woods and they were trying to conjure up stuff. And they saw something that looked like a Sasquatch. Now it's Oregon, so people are going to say Sasquatch. It's obviously it's a flesh and blood Bigfoot.
Exactly.
But it's in the same darn neighborhood that this dogman creature decided to visit this guy. And is it possible that they were doing something that opened something up? Did these creatures come through? Or was there an energy that they were drawn to? Because, you'll get reports of these creatures near a power plant. One of the really interesting things that I might have talked about this on the show, and I don't want to bogart the show because you're the guest, but I want to tell you, Dan, there was a report that we got from the power plant out in LaGrange, Texas, where a guy was driving to work and he saw what looked like a werewolf. And then another one of his coworkers was driving home from work on a different shift, and they saw two people what looked like a Bigfoot on the same highway coming out of the power plant. Now, why do these things tend to show up near places of electrical power? That's another thing.
And it's repeatable. It continues to keep going. I've got the same situation with private descriptions in Michigan. And a friend of mine who grew up there, she was with a friend of hers, and they happened to be looking at the grid of this big electronic, the whole system. And here there is something climbing it. And it's got hair, and it's got size, and then there's another one. And so whether that was just a gymnastics fun thing or whether that had an association with electronics or electricity, I don't know. But that does continue to keep coming up. And all the pre-internet reports, if you start going through those, there's still a lot of references to people having trouble with car batteries or electrical devices when a Sasquatch is in the vicinity. Not always, but sometimes. And it continues to crop up today. And a lot of these people are they're not aware of any of the earlier reports, but yet they're describing situations that run very parallel to them, And it's just the whole thing just shocks and amazes me because of all the technology that we have. And I understand that there's just a small percentage of us that are really focused on trying to accumulate data and accumulate evidence, etc. But the numbers grow, and we're getting closer, but it certainly seems like it's taking plenty of time. And there are still so many people that are convinced there's no way this is real. I've got another friend of mine who had some experiences as a child and had some very close one-on-one situations with Sasquatches where the big alpha male walked right up to him, literally bent over and looked in his face. And he ended up going back. And over time, he was able to actually parallel the group a little bit, learn a lot, and continued as an adult to interact with them, supposedly. But he ended up working with Bill Osmondson, another artist actually out of Texas. And Bill illustrated the creature that he saw basically in the oil fields at night in Oklahoma. And this individual had a snout. Looked very Sasquatch, but had a snout, and the feet were a little different, but it still had that big, heavy body, very primate look. And I've seen a lot of dogman illustrations that look very primate to me. So I know there's a lot of different species that, no, I won't say that, but I'll say that there seems to be a variety of species that masquerade under that term dogman. So.
Yeah, it's same with Sasquatch. I mean, people get these reports and they don't know what to make of it. And people come to me and I'm like you. I mean, I get these reports and I'm just like, I can't give you the answers. I will say this, that we've gone on a few investigations, because before I got married, I didn't really go out and do a lot of investigating. But my wife, when she came, she was like, I want to go out to these places. And so we would go out to these places and we would go on location But we did do a few investigations, especially near Devil's Backbone, and we have gone to places where it's undoubtedly you get out of your vehicle and you can feel the energy. Like it feels like something is there. It's like there's electricity in the air. And you know, one time I was just like putting on my jacket and it was like it was like crackling. It was like you could feel the electricity and you're like, dude, there's definitely something out there, and you know why these people are seeing what they're seeing. And you just, I don't know what it is. I mean, you know, but there's definitely something to that. These places that you go to, and I can't tell these people what it is. Because I've fielded so many reports and I've gotten so many stories, it doesn't give me all the answers. Now I was on with Expanded Perspectives, the guys like Kyle and Cameron, good guys. And we were talking after the show, and I can't remember which one it was. It said it was like trying to figure all this out is like trying to capture smoke in a bag. And he's like, the longer you do this, the more questions you end up with. You don't really find the answers. It's like you just kind of have to take it easy and be like, look, man, I'm giving you what I got. It's information. Right. You know, the show I did on Tuesday was Anthony named it. What'd you name it, Anthony?
I named it Black Eyed Kid All Grown Up. Because,
yeah, the Black Eyed Kid phenomenon, which, you know, David Weatherly, you know, he broke that, you know, and there was a bunch of people who have come forward, and even my friend Loki, who claims to have had one, he talked about it on my show. And these people have seen these entities, you know, I don't know what you want to call them. I had worked security for a large computer company at one point, and when they were building one of their I guess they call them the fabs or whatever, there was something weird that had happened to us. And one of my guys he ended up working for me years later, but at the time he was my boss. And we had something really weird happen. One of our guards had been approached in the guard shack by 3 children that had black eyes.
Oh boy.
Now, years later, you know, we end up doing a show about it, and a guy that we only know him by the name of Trace, he was at the gym, and we all met him, and he sat there one night as he was getting done with his workout, and I was about to get started, and he gives me an hour's worth of stuff, and I said, dude, I really got to get my workout done, but I am really intrigued. Let's finish this conversation. Well, when we talked, 2.5 hours of him telling me about his life and what it was like living with this woman. And you go back and you listen to the show. I'm not going to give it away to those who haven't heard it, but go back and listen to the show. Now, some people messaged me and said, we figured it out. There it is. That's what it is. Well, that's his experience, and that's what happened to him, but that doesn't answer all the questions. That's just what he gave me as information. You can take that and compile it and say, that is part of the phenomena. Figured out, right, Tony? We've been talking about it for 2 weeks now. We've been talking, or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to be real careful about, and I've have a bad habit of doing it to where, like, I sometimes might come up with a theory, or I might come up, you know, because we postulate all the time, and I might come up with something and I like it and it sticks, and like I convince myself that is true, when in reality I should look at all of this as what they are: hypotheticals, theories, really things that, you know, you have no real physical proof of, or you can't really say for sure because we weren't there to see or have this experience with him. So, you know, like his story did answer a lot of hypotheticals, like it led to a lot of answerings to questions, but it also led to a lot more questions. So I think we have to be careful to not let ourselves get like boxed into like figuring out, or like 100% saying like, oh, this is it, because we, you know, hear some stories that you know, kind of lead us in a certain direction. I think we have to be careful to be biased about everything, and, you know, non-biased. I mean, right?
Yep. We got
to be 100%.
We got to judge. You hear that, Dan? Every time somebody tells you a story, write it down and judge them extreme. What is your credit score, sir?
There you go. I've got to jump in right here, because it certainly seems like some people are more subject to more things than others. I've got a buddy of mine that I worked with for about 5 years, and he is He's got some native blood, Navajo in him, and he is part Mexican, and so he has an interesting heritage. He's from Colorado. He grew up hunter-fisherman, and he one day he was hunting coyote in one of the western counties of Colorado, and as he's sitting there, he doesn't smell anything. He doesn't feel like anything's weird. He's just waiting for coyotes. And all of a sudden, he felt on top of his head a giant hand.
Mm.
And this hand dropped down with the thumb, and he felt it on his ear. And it was one of those enveloping hands over his entire head, so we know what it was. He passed out. And he woke up many hours later in the dark, got his gun, left, never hunted coyote there again. And that obviously gave him the willies. Now, one other incident he had was he was out with a group of guys hunting, and he ended up sitting under like a base of a tree. Everything's great. He's relaxed. And somewhere in the course of this day, he meets this woman. She has dark eyes. She's wearing a dress. He talks with her. He does not understand what she's saying. And she fades on him. And he's in shock. Well, he went and sat at the base of the tree in the morning. It was almost dark when he got up and walked over, and he found the guys that he was hunting with, and they were like, "We looked all over for you. Where were you?" And he was sitting as far as he knew, he was sitting at the base of the tree, not far from the road, the entire time. They never saw him. They couldn't find him. Nothing. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
There's a great report in the book that was it's associated with Ron, with the Sierra Sounds.
Oh yeah, Ron, yeah, he'll be at my conference. Yeah.
Well, good. I hope so.
Yeah,
I'm talking behind Ron in Tennessee in October. But anyway, he in the particular book, it was a group of 3 teenagers, and there was a Sasquatch associated with them. And they were sitting around a campfire, and the guy on the side saw the Sasquatch, actually walked over toward it. Then he kind of freaked out and realized he was way too close to it, and he went back to the other guys, and he's talking to them, and it was just like they couldn't hear him, just like they couldn't see him. And then over time, eventually, the Sasquatch left, and then this guy became visual, and they could hear him talk. But there was a period of time where they could not see or hear him. And I always wondered, is there something going on through vocalizations or through some way that these creatures could possibly cause our eyesight to become impaired, so that they're still there, but we're just not seeing them because of some sort of disruption to the fabric of our capability of eyesight of some sort, if that makes sense.
I think we've talked about this. I mean, Anthony, you brought up like illusions, I think. Maybe I think we've talked in the past about like some kind of mist or maybe something where it just veil or kind of just hides from you what you really need to see, or what they're trying to, or really what they're just portraying what they want to show instead of what is actually there.
Yeah, like that what you're talking about is something I brought up where like creatures can have an ability to influence the human mind, because technically you don't see with your eyes, you actually see with your brain. The eyes take in light and visual information. The brain interprets it and creates images out of that information. So you see with your mind, really. But that to me sounds like he could have like slipped into some like whatever dimension or parallel reality that this creature that he saw could have come out of. And
that's a possibility too. Yeah.
Because if there are like these portals, that these creatures come out of, and we can't see them, so we could probably unwillingly walk right through one and still be in the same place, but not like on the same plane of existence or dimension. However, I don't know how to phrase it, but to be there but not be there.
Well, sure. Wolf, I don't know if you remember, but we had that story about like those creepy looking, barbarian looking guys coming into the forest out of nowhere.
Oh, those ogres.
Yeah, and they were looking for like, well, we theorized that
we thought, nobody said they were ogres. We thought they were from, that was Oklahoma.
But like they were walking through portals basically, so it could have been possible that one of them was just left open. And this, he could have walked through.
Well, think about this. I don't know if you, Dan, I don't know if you know what this is, but there was a game called WoW. Now, it was World of Warcraft. And I got a report years ago. Well, this happened years ago, but it was recently I got it, probably about 6 weeks ago. But this guy said that when he was young, he would play World of Warcraft. Now, how old is that game? What, 10, 15 years?
It's a pretty...
I think that game probably came out in like 2005 or something.
Yeah, so you're going on 20 years.
Yeah.
I remember Bones used to play it. Bones is a friend of mine. We all had nicknames back in the day, but Bones used to play it. But this one guy, he was telling me that him and his little brother, they were out there near Marble Falls, where Thule used to live. What the heck is it called? Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
Out there on the other side of Dripping Springs and here in Texas, and they saw what looked like a creature that the only way they could describe it was a World of Warcraft orc. Mm-hmm. And it was squatted down, and it literally had there was another being next to it, but they didn't get a good look at it, and it was literally, it was cutting a deer, and there was like this axe looking thing right next to it. And so I made a joke. I told him, I said, well, you probably were playing that game. He's a friend of a friend. He's not like, I'm not like good friends with him or anything. He's an acquaintance. Sure. I know who he is. And I said, you were probably playing that game and you probably got a few drinks in you from the club and you was heading back home and and he, and they tell me these stories because they know I collect them. And I said, well, and I was kind of making a joke about it, but he says, dude, and he got very serious, man. Mm-hmm. And he was like, Wolf, that's my nickname. He says, Wolf, I'm not kidding. Like, this thing looked like an orc, like you would see, like in World of Warcraft. I'm not joking. That was the best way he could describe it because he had played that game extensively. And so I took it at face value, but then later, me and my brother, who's in the chat under Diablo Varulf, and so me and Diablo and Scorpion, we were talking about it one day, and we talked about that case. I don't know, D, if you remember it, but what we came up to the conclusion was that maybe it didn't look like that, but that's what it made. His brain told him that's what it was he was looking at.
That's an interesting point, and I'm going to do this. For those of us who don't know what those particular individuals associated with that game look like, how do they compare with the orcs that we do know of, the ones from the ring, for example? Because as you know, some of those are pretty Sasquatch looking, especially one of the alphas or the lead dude.
Yeah.
I think the only real difference is maybe size and like skin.
What about the tusks?
Color and the tusks, I think. Yeah,
because this thing had tusks. And Scorpion brought up a good point. I believe it was him that said it. I don't know. Scorpion, you're in the chat too. You can say something on there on the thread if you remember this. But he said something like, "What if it did it look like a Gamorrean card?" Because we were talking about that, on those trolls. Because we get reports here, and like my good friend tries to tell me, Lyle, he says it's because of the name of your show. I said, dude, I've been building these reports forever. But I told him, I said, yeah, Paranormal Roundtable is going to draw some reports of weird stuff, but that's good because I want to get the whole picture. I mean,
that's the idea.
And we don't. And speaking of the whole picture, we don't have it. We've got a tiny fraction of what the hell's going on with all the variation and phenotypic differences between these juveniles, these teenagers, these adults, and everything between hair color and body type. For example, a friend of mine had seen her first Sasquatch, and she described it as an NFL punter, for example. Big wide shoulders, but slender body, long, elongated, wide receiver type look. I've got a female from Oklahoma that I drew, and I can send you an example of that, but it's going in my book. So anyway, so we'll leave that one private. But she was like almost 8 feet tall, probably 500 pounds, built like a basketball player. The Caucasian or white person's nose, narrow, and wasn't big and wide and squashed like so many. And I see so many. I've gotten a few pictures of the target species that I consider legit. And one of the things that continues to amaze me is the clown-like nose. And at least in some cases, Minnesota, Wisconsin,
A bulbous
few
nose.
others, a bulbous nose. And I continue to see that in certain pictures that come out of nowhere that people have. And that, to me, that's a very legitimate consideration. Does that make the picture real? No, of course not. Could it be? Yes, it could be. And the more the photography that comes in, obviously there's a tremendous amount of I'll just be nice and say not what we're hoping for. And but there are some images that might be out of focus that can still show ear placement, profiles, ratios of limbs and bodies, depth and width and all those things. And that increases the likelihood that what we're looking at is real, especially when they continue to repeat themselves, especially when they're associated with tracks or other secondary evidence that jives. So, I mean, we're getting there. We're launching closer. Look at the books on the subject. There's more and more private comments that are coming to the surface. And as we continue to network and work with one another, I think we can blow some holes in some of the things that we're after and actually get more legitimate information. It wasn't too many years ago that wood knocking was laughed at.
Yeah.
Now it's absolutely associated. It's actually accepted in most circles.
That's something I've actually heard. I have not. My wife saw something on from the side. She got a good look at it. I should say I saw it from the side and then from the back. I didn't get a good look at it, so I don't claim to have seen a Sasquatch. It was a brownish, reddish brown color, whatever.
Sure.
But we heard wood knocking on multiple occasions before we saw that. And one time we were out by the lake and we were driving around and it freaked us out because it got me turned around. Now, here's the weird thing about it. Dan, I've driven down that road a million times. My friend Christopher Garitano did an investigation right there. And, of course, Anthony, you know James, the security guard, he's an African-American guy.
Yeah.
Okay, now him and a friend of my brother's who used to have he used to work pest control, and they told us a crazy story of a werewolf. I mean, it was absolutely werewolf. Like, this thing came out of the water and the hair began to fall off of it. Now, it was a guard and a pest control guy. It happened years ago, and I went over this case with Linda Godfrey, and we discussed it because she had something very similar. And so we were talking about this green mist, and then I went over it with Lon Strickler, too, because he had a case where there was like a silver mist coming off of it. And so I like to throw things by all you guys, different researchers and authors, to get your opinions.
Oh, you have to.
You have to.
Wise.
So you call people up and you say, what do you think of this? And you send them the report. They look at it and tell you, well, this is what I know. And that's how you get to the bottom of it. Well, you try to. What's crazy, though, is I was taking my wife out there to show her that area, which is a hotbed of activity. And like I said, there's a lake house out there that Garitano had on his show, Strange World. And there was a guy who, I'm not going to talk bad about the guy, I don't know the guy, but he took a mirror out of there and literally saw demons in his house. And it's the only way you could describe it as demonic, and I thought, well, that's really foolish, but here I am driving around out there at 2 a.m. to show my wife. And I'm like, that guy's dumb. Look at what he did. And I'm over here driving around, and then
you're running parallel.
Yeah, okay. I'm out there, and right there by that is where that werewolf creature encounter happened. And we hear, I pull off on the side of the road. We go and we turn off onto the road, I should say, where it's a really beautiful view. You drive out there, and it's one of the docks on Lake Travis. Now, it's really pretty. It's by the dam. It's really nice. And so we're sitting there, but I know there's been a lot of weird stuff out there. Well, me and my wife hear this loud bang, 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 and it was like somebody taking a Louisville Slugger to a tree. And we heard it, and she goes, what what was that? And, I kind of made a joke at first, like, oh, I paid somebody to go out in the woods. And I just, and I wish that was the case, because what happened after that really freaked me out, because I got turned around in an area where I have been 1,000 times, Dan. And I'm telling you, she got freaked out and she said, let's go, let's drive. So we got, we left. As we're driving out, and now I know Barton's in the chat. I saw him. Barton, I took you and Letitia out there, and her and Nellie had walked out to the boat docks, whatever. And Barton knows, and he was looking around, and I showed him.
To Texas.
You got to. And Barton was like, "Yeah, this looks like prime Bigfoot Dogman territory." We were out there talking, and Barton's asking, "Is this Dan Nedrello?" Yes, it is, Barton. So, when we drove out, been there 1,000 times. I got turned around and I got lost. And I think at the time, my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, but she was thinking, that I was messing with her or something, trying to scare her. And I said, honey, I'm not trying to scare you. And I didn't want to tell her I'm scared, because now you hear the wood knocking.
She's listening now, right?
She's probably listening, going like, you jerk, but so I got her turned around and she goes, I thought you said you've been out here 1,000 times. I said, I have, I promise you. So everywhere we drove, I couldn't find my way out. And I was like, I know this is the road. I know this is the way out. And I kept getting turned around, and wherever we were, I kid you not, we were hearing the wood knocks, and it was like bang, 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 and it would be on our right. And then we would go around, and then we'd hear it in this clump of like forest that's kind of in the middle, and then there's like a few houses out there, but it's still sparsely whatever. And you could hear it, and it was freaking her out, and it was freaking me out, because all the times I've been out there, nothing had ever happened. Ever.
So what do you think your explanation is for having trouble with your orientation?
Or you could chalk it up to being, I don't know, man, panicky. Maybe I was panicking or something at that point, and I got discombobulated. I don't know, and I was trying to like keep us safe. You know what I mean? And that's your job.
It's just like everything. It's just like everything's coming at once.
Yeah. Or
been there.
Something was messing with me, and my mind just wasn't working right. And you can go out into the woods and get turned around real easy.
I agree.
Me and my friend Keith, we went out one time and we were shooting rattlesnakes. That's just in copperheads, and we had these little 22 rifles.
And I'd be the guy walking behind you saying, "Don't save that one. I need that one in the bag. Come on."
That's how my friend Snake Man is. What he does, he collects them. And so I'm walking.
Well, actually, I need some because I got to do a reptile demo in Arkansas. But that's
dude, I can get you some, man. I do.
Okay, we be talking, man. We be talking.
Trust me, they're everywhere down here. You can step on a rattlesnake going outside to just walk to your car. But no, we're walking, and I was about 13 or something. And what's really crazy, my friend was like right behind me, and somehow we got separated. I turned around and I'm like, Keith, where's Keith at? And I don't know where I'm at. And he had the flashlight. How on God's green earth did I walk around and not have the flashlight, and was looking down at my feet? Next thing you know, he's separated from me. And then we start wandering around in different directions in a place where we had been a million times. And I started getting panicky, and which I usually don't do. I'm very calm and cool under pressure. I'm not just saying that. These guys know they've seen me do it.
Well, your profession too, so we get it.
Yeah, and so I'm over there like kind of panicky as a kid, But I hadn't felt like that since, like as a child. And that night that I was driving around a few years ago, and I couldn't find my way out, and I kept hearing the wood knocking, and it was getting more pronounced. And we were convinced that we were just going to see like a group of Sasquatch come out on, it was like we were freaking out. Yeah. And she thought it was kind of cool a little bit afterwards, and we were driving back over the dam, and I'd found my way out finally. She was like, that was intense. That was crazy, because it was just like it just happened, and it was scary. Once we were safe, she was like, that's an amazing experience. We were convinced that it was Squatch activity. We didn't see it. But the way that it, messes with your mind, it makes you wonder what's really going on here.
I'm going to give you a parallel one. I back in Okay, I was in BFRO in 2000, 2004. I didn't have any major experiences then, but I had some really good ones in Tennessee, and I worked with other landowners at that activity, faces in the window, and all that good stuff. Um, let's swing over to 2010. Finally, I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm having things happen. I've got a private property that had some weird things going on, and I'm sitting there one night, and I've got the recorders going, and all of a sudden there's an argument with dog and coyote up on the hill, and it's that type of stuff. And all of a sudden there is a really loud going across the valley. Shut the canines up. So then I knew I was onto something. Now it's the same month, and it's about 30 days later. I got my cousin and his son out, and we're out doing surveys, wood knock surveys. I had never gotten a wood knock yet, even that late. In a few other states, but not in Wisconsin. And I used to hunt rattlesnakes on a regular basis. I was up and down river bluffs all the time. Almost did my master's on timbers. But anyway, long story short, we're out at night. I have Keith go up the hill, and he's like doing a baseball slam, and quiet, wait a minute, do another one. Okay, let's go. This time I hear the Ohio scream. 2 of them, like scream roars. And I'm like, I got the parabolic mic on, I got the headphone on, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm hearing this. I'm not even going to say anything to these guys. They're going to think I'm nuts. And Keith comes down off the hill. Holy shit, did you hear that? It was just like the Ohio call. I imitated it. He goes, yeah, you heard it too. His dad's looking at us like we're nuts. We continue through the night, and we get done, and we get a wood knock finally. And I give the headset to his dad, and his dad's sitting there, and we're kind of high-fiving because we finally got a damn wood knock. And all of a sudden, he's looking at us, and he's like, well, we got to go. I'm like, what's up? He's, well, we got work in the morning, and we just got to go. So we took off. And that next morning, he said, I was listening, and I'd swear there were 2 things on 2 legs coming toward the vehicle. And that was why he wanted to go. And what's so really ironic is a year later, we had one of the people that we deer hunt with pass away, and there was a funeral, and I should have gone, but I was working with somebody, so I didn't go. And my cousin goes, and he's always glassing the hills just in case for white-tailed deer or other wildlife. He sees a giant man in brown step out from the brush, bend over, pick something up, go back up. And I know what hill that is, and there's other reports around there too. So, well, I guess I'm just saying is luckily part of my family knows this is going on as well because they've had some experiences. There's been other members too. My first one where we had a real legit situation was I got called down to the 400 in Missouri in 2019 in July. And I had driven from Wisconsin, it had taken over 10 hours, almost 11. And about 2:30 in the morning, I hit the camp, and it was like, well, you've been driving all day. You're going to go to bed? And I'm like, are you shitting me? It is prime time. Let's do it. So we're out only a half an hour, and we've got Randy is there, and Shane Carpenter's there, and we're going along, and we're on Randy's thermal hits, and we've got something peeking around. And we're not sure exactly what it is because we can't see it that well, but it's behaving like a peaker, like we'd expect. And Shane decides I'm going in on it. And so he walks in on it, and it's about 100 feet out. And hot damn if it isn't a young Sasquatch. And he's 7 to 8 feet away from it. And they have an interaction, and he's shining it in his face a little bit. And turns out that the best illustration that we've got of it, actually, Sibylla did. And there'll be some changes. We'll release that when Shane's ready to. But anyway, I'll be working on that illustration. And we ended up with tracks from this little fella, about 10 inches. So he's got a lot of tracks cast from it. And then now this year, we were out for about almost over 2 years. And Randy and Shane started going back in there. And we've got a youngster who's got a 9.5-inch print, and he's punching all over. So there's like 35 casts on that so far. So we are getting a headway that way. I'm trying to study footprints of both people and suspect just to try to learn more, because I think there's a lot of tracks that are just ignored because they're human size. So anyway, that's what I thought. Those are a few things I had to add to the table.
That's interesting, and it does add a parallel. Like what the stories you've brought tonight, and what you've brought a lot of insight, and it's invaluable, and it's been a great.
Well, thank you. We can go 40 more days and 40 more nights if you like.
That's right. But I got to record tonight, and when I get done with this, so I can be ready for Tuesday. Dan, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for being here, and we got to get together again.
Oh, we will. I'm honored, by the way, and I'm coming to Texas. I'm going to try to make your gig in the first week of September, and we'll take her from there. But let's plan on some more correspondence, because I think we've got a few things to share and grow from.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we definitely do. So, folks, everybody, Dan Nadrello, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, what kind of projects you got, whatever.
Sure. First of all, I've got Wild Man Literature Group. It's pretty much invite only, but you can find it. And if you can't find it, get a hold of me. I am at Dana Nadrello, D-A-N-A. Nadrello, that's my Sasquatch profile. And there's a pretty good network there. I've got another one, the professional one, that's for biologists and conservationists and models and photographers and artists. That's Dan A. Nadrello. And you can Facebook friend me there, but Sasquatch Talk will be on Dana, D-A-N-A, Nadrello. Also, you can get a hold of me through Art and Data Sasquatch Witness Group. And then I've got the White Biped Project. I've got about 20 more as well, but they're in development, and there'll be a wide range of things associated with Sasquatches. I also have Dogman Mystery, and I haven't spent a lot of time in there, but we're starting to put more witnesses together. That will grow and continue to make hay on that subject.
Well, so put me in over there as an admin, and I'll grow your group overnight. I can promise
good,
you
man.
that. I can grow a group like nobody's
you're a
business.
magnet. Everybody will follow you. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan.
And you can always they can always Google me, and that's kind of like my website. And I've got Dan Nadrello Photography on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
So,
man of many parts. Dan, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I had a great conversation with you. I mean, I've had a lot of really good guests, and you're definitely top tier. And folks, Dan will be there at the conference. You got to come check it out. It's going to be an awesome time, and you can meet him in person. So good night to Dan, and
thank you for coming on.
Thank you for coming on.
Hey, guys, thanks, and looking forward to more conversations. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hit me up anytime. You got my information.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. All right, Dan.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right, bye.
I'm off. Bye.
So, folks, that was Dana Nadrello, sorry. And guy's got a lot of good stories, a lot of good information. I've corresponded with him for a while, and he, like I said, I found him through his White Bigfoot project because, there's a story, and eventually it'll be told. We just got to get the time to get it done. I wanted her to tell it in her own words, which is my wife, and let her. It's not my story; it's hers, and it is an interesting one too. And we were going to do a White Bigfoot episode. We had lots of stories about it, but we have so many other things. This coming Tuesday. Now we debated us here about what we should talk about. And we all had a conversation about it. And I think it was me, Tony, Anthony, and Nelly, and even Dee. I think we all kind of talked about it. So we decided that we were going to do a show, and it's going to be about, if you're listening now, you'll like it, okay? I'm not going to call it haunted hotels, because that's not what it is. It's not just a haunted hotel. It's horrifying stories of people here in the Lone Star State having a night stay somewhere and something happens. It doesn't go well. I had one in Fort Collins. I'll tell you before we jump off here, I'll tell you a quick story, and it's not real long, but we had been driving for hours, and we finally got to Fort Collins, and I was absolutely exhausted. We'd gone all the way across Wyoming. We came down into Colorado, and I walked upstairs, and I was so tired. And so I went up into the room. Thank you for everybody that donated, by the way. Jordan Cogburn, Jaron Kaiser, Michelle Collins, Susie Jago, anybody else I might have forgotten or missed. But I was so tired that I took some luggage up and I went upstairs and I just laid down on the bed and like my eyes started to close like almost immediately. Like it was like one of those little mini dreams. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, if you ever had that. But it feels like you just like go unconscious for a few seconds and you're like in another world or something. And I heard the people that I was traveling with, my wife, Chris, and Scorpion, and I heard them come in. And so I opened my eyes and I started to talk, and I see this thing that looks like a black shadow thing just run like this out the door. And I was like, what the heck was that? Because at first I thought, because it was tall, big, I thought it was Scorpion or Chris, because they're both big guys, and I thought it was one of them. And it wasn't. And then right after that, I hear them all talking in the hallway and coming in with the rest of the luggage. And I sat up and I was like, this hotel room's haunted, And then when we were on our way to California, Anthony, I know you remember this, in Buckeye, and I thought I saw Anthony stand at the foot of my bed. And I was like, what is he doing? And I sat up because I heard somebody moving around and I heard like somebody scratching or something. And I thought, is he sleepwalking or something? I didn't know what he was doing. And I realized that I look over in the other bed and Anthony's laying there asleep in the other bed and my wife's asleep next to me. And I'm like, who is that? So I threw the covers off and, and I get up and I look again, my eyes focus and there's nothing there. So the next day I go down and I talk to the hotel clerk, and he was pretty nice guy. He was from Pakistan, but he was, there was no language barrier. He was a young guy, he was a student. He was working for his uncle. Well, his aunt and uncle, I guess, owned it. And he said, I'm going to be real honest with you. He goes, my uncle would kill me if I told you this. He goes, but this place is haunted. And he goes, there's been, some stuff that's happened here. And in that particular room, there was a suicide. And that spirit is, what did he say, Anthony? It was like restless,
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's like, if I would have been here last night, and I wouldn't have checked you into that room, I would have given you a different one. And I said, well, that's, I think I saw it, It didn't do anything, but it was freaky. I mean, it was freaky, dude, because like the eyes, like I saw the blink of the eyes and I thought, eyes are really white. Like Anthony's got, like his eyes are really white. Like what's going on here? And then I realized that that's not Anthony. What is that? And I kind of sat up and was like, and that's happened a few times. I've had some weird experiences, one time I was in Midland. And I personally, it didn't happen to me, but I was traveling with another person, and the room that they rented they had something grab their feet, and we didn't stay in the same room, thank goodness. And I was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. He was kind enough to pay for both of our hotel rooms, and we didn't have to stay in the same room. We'd already driven for hours, and it was to give a eulogy. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So, folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. We're going to do the Wheel of Broken Dreams, or what? I don't even know what y'all calling it now. The
Breaking Wheel.
The Breaking Wheel. The Breaking Wheel. Let me take these out. So we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to the Breaking Wheel, but you may win something. Now, what we're going to give away tonight is a little different. We decided that we were going to give away something different. Now it's getting too warm for hoodies. So if you got a hoodie, you might have a little more cold weather for a couple of weeks, and then probably time to put it away until, the cold front comes in October. But we have other things. We have a lot of other things. And if you come to the conference, we're going to have even more, a lot of things. That didn't make any sense. What we have tonight, though, is and we got Barton in the chat, I have some hardcover books from Barton Nunley. And if Barton would be so kind, I think they go for about $40 a book. I believe you have to pay about $40 for them. I'm not real sure if that's correct. I think that's correct. I get them straight from the source, and so I would like to share them with you. And Tony, in fact, go in there and make sure we still have them in there. And we didn't leave them in the storage or anything like that. Make sure we have them. Scorpion just messaged me, Fort Brown. Yeah, that was another scary thing that happened to us. Fort Brown, where there had been a fire. at that hotel down in Brownsville, and the hotel clerk told me and him and our friend Big Rob that there had been some really tragic that had happened there way back in the 1890s. And yeah, that was a weird hotel too. And then we had something at the Emily Morgan happen to us, which subsequently we're going to talk about because the Emily Morgan had some pretty. How do you say it? It's had a lot of prolific activity.
Yeah.
USA Today, at the time we stayed there back in 2020 or 19, something like that, it was ranked number 2 in the country as one of the most haunted hotels in America. Number 1 was the Stanley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's, of course, famous because of The Shining. You know, I'm trying to write my book. Yeah. And so, so Brave called it the noodle wheel of swag. Why would Noodle get to have? Why is it his wheel? I don't think it should be the Noodle wheel of swag.
We need some names to put up on the breaking wheel.
Yeah, so y'all go ahead and let us know who.
So if you haven't won, just let us know, and I'll start putting your names up on the breaking Noodle wheel of swag destiny, whatever.
Lisa McKenna says I haven't won yet.
All right.
Valujo or Valujo says I have never won. Broke back wheel of swag.
Christy Crawford.
Noodles big ass giveaway. Nelson Pinola says I've never won before. James Lewis says I haven't won yet. I'd be honored to make it on the wheel tonight. Fisher of Spam, I've never won. J.L. Vasquez says I've not won. Now, Barton, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we got some hardcovers from you. I know that we have them. I hear Tony in there throwing stuff around.
Oh yeah, the hardcovers are still in there.
Well, why can't he not find them?
Because he can't find things.
Oh my God! It's one of the great mysteries of life how you've not been hit by a bus. That's great. He brings the soft cover. Oh my gosh! Well, pretty sure we got some. Well, yeah, we had a box of them. Let me put this down so here. I'm almost certain.
We have these hard covers, but it's just these things.
This is what they look like. I can't see. I think I'm showing you.
Yeah.
And do we have the Inhumanoid hardcover? This is Kentucky. This is Barton Nunley, Mysterious Kentucky. I don't want to handle it too much. Yeah, but there you go. Then it's signed on the inside of it right there. I don't know if you can see. There's signed by Barton Nunley, and then there's the Inhumanoids one. So what we'll do is we'll give away one of each of these. These are hardcover Barton Nunley signed books. We're going to give away Mysterious Kentucky. It looks like we have volume 2, and then we have Mysterious Kentucky volume 1, and then the Inhumanoids. Another thing I have, I purchased a guy, a good friend of mine named John Bankhead. I purchased his collection of books. I purchased his library. And I do mean library. He had over 1,000 books that we bought. And they're all sitting in my garage, and some of them are in my study, and I've gone through some of them, and most of them are in really good shape. Well, he had in his possession, which is now in my possession, the first edition of Barton. Now, this is the Inhumanoids hardcover of Barton's book. Okay, and this is the Cryptid Bible, and I'm telling you right now, okay, it's a very good book. If you haven't read it, you should do yourself a favor and read it. It gives you a lot. Okay, it's the Inhumanoids. That's what we call them. And I'm telling you right now, if you haven't read it, you're missing out. But he had the first edition of it. The first edition was like this Renaissance painting-looking cover, and that was a limited edition. It was a limited print run, and it's you can't find it anywhere. They were selling it on Amazon for like $1,000 or something like that. Before I put it on eBay or Amazon, because I was going to sell it or auction it off for the conference. What I'm thinking about doing now, I'm thinking about using it as a door prize for the conference. And I was thinking about maybe doing a raffle for it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Unless somebody wants to make me an offer for it, because the one that Ken had, we signed it, me, Ken, and Barton, for a listener. And then the one that I had, we signed it for a listener, and James Estrada, who's in the chat right there, James Estrada ended up buying that book. And it was not in as good a shape as Ken's. I had actually read it, unlike Ken, who I think Ken probably read it once. But anyway, this book is in really good shape. I'd rate it as a not excellent condition, but good condition. I think it's been read once, but it's in pretty darn good condition.
It looks really nice, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it may have not been read at all. It might have just been a part of his collection. But anyways, I'm gonna try and sell that or auction it off to try to get money for the conference, put money together for the conference, because it costs money to get the speakers, and pay them to come to the conference. If everybody buys tickets, that won't be an issue. We'll be able to, pay for everything, the catering and all of the wonderful niceties and getting all the speakers and everybody there. It's gonna be big. Last year was really good, and I don't think there's any conference out. I'm biased, of course. Like Tony said earlier, we're all biased, but I think our conference was the best conference of the year last year, and a lot of the people that spoke at that conference told us that it was the funnest conference that they had been at. And I was at several conferences with these people, and I don't think any of them were even nearly as fun as ours, or as the camaraderie wasn't as good.
And some of those people, I don't want to say, some of them were that said that have been to many conferences, and that's kind of their thing, is that they go to a lot of conferences all the time, and they still had raving reviews about ours, so it kind of made us feel really good. And that's why we decided just to make this one just bigger and better, give you double of everything we had last time. Because
And last year we wanted to do 2 days. Mm-hmm. And Ken, who's done a lot of these, and he says, look, trust me on this, 2 days don't work. Mm. But after he saw the way the conference went last year, he doubled back and said, hey, you might be able to pull it off. Now I'm being told by several people that this has never been done before. Nobody's ever had 20 speakers and go for 2 days. I'm gambling here. Okay, I'm a gambler. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not like, hey man, I gotta go. I'm betting on the Raiders. They better win. Oh, he makes a field goal. My legs broke. No, not like talking about like that. I'm talking about riverboat gambler. I've always been kind of like roll the dice, and I'll put it like this: if there's a way to tie the game with an extra point, or if I can punch it in on a 2-point conversion, it's a football term, I'm going to take my chances. If I got the squad, I think we're going to punch it in at the 2-yard line. Okay, because I just have that kind of, I believe. Okay, that's how I believe, and I believe that much in my PRT listeners. I know that you guys are going to come through for me. I come through for you every Tuesday and Friday. I know you come through for me. And I believe that we'll get the crowd. Last year, 483 people, right?
Yeah.
We'll get that there this year, okay? And we're going to show some of these people who've already started a little talking, and no, he's really trying to do, it's going to fall flat on his face. Somebody said that in one of the groups the other day. I screenshotted it, and now I'm stalking this person. I'm joking. I don't care. Whatever. Say what you want to say, sir. Think what you want to think. Tell me people won't pay $100 for whatever. I don't care. They paid $100 for the VIP. It's $125 this year, and you're getting more. Okay? And the regular tickets are more, obviously, because you're getting a whole lot more. A regular ticket is really what a VIP was last year. So, I mean, you're getting more bang for your buck. Big names. I know there's a few people that can't make it. They're not going to be there that were there last year. But we've replaced them with big name people. It's like when you win the Super Bowl, you don't just rest on your laurels and hope that, hey, maybe next year we'll go again. Maybe, You lose some people to free agency, right? Mm-hmm. So what do? You go out and you hire some good free agents, and then or you draft. We got some young up-and-comers that are good, that are going to be there, good guys who aren't as well known, but they're going to they've made the cut, and they're gonna be known. You're going to know who these people are, and we have a lot of old veterans that are just really going to bring a flavor to the conference. Guys like Ron Moorhead. I mean, I'm excited to meet Ron face to face. I haven't met him face to face. I've met Adam face-to-face, and it's going to be nice to have him at the conference. And I got Chad Lewis on board. Guys, Chad Lewis, man, I'm a big fan of his work. I can't tell you how excited I am to meet those two in face-to-face. And I got to meet Sibylla, face-to-face along with Adam.
I'm excited to meet either Kyle or Cam, either one that can come.
Yeah, and the guys from Expanded Perspectives, even though we're living both in the Lone Star State and we talk, we haven't been able to meet face-to-face. Chris Garitano, I've been wanting to meet him face-to-face. It's going to be big. Okay, we're going to win, and we're going to win big. Write it down. Right? Go ahead.
Of course.
Will.
All right, so let's see who's going to win tonight. Let's give her a spin. Heidi is our first winner. Let's see.
Don't forget to give us your full name and address so we can send you one of these wonderful prizes. Unfortunately, Welder, you got to get with me, man, so I can send you your stuff. You only gave me your name of your city and your zip code.
Yeah, I mean, he was already omitted off of one, even though he was there.
Yeah, I think it took him like 3 times.
Yeah, so he struggled to get one, so might as well get your prize, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're holding it up, holding up the line.
Yeah, anybody who wins, make sure you send your name, your address, and your shirt size to the email at the top of the screen. Just shoot them an email saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. I won the giveaway. Here's my mailing address, my full name, and my shirt size.
There's no shirt size. These are books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Anthony. Jeez.
Okay, so the next winner, Valuho, I guess is how you pronounce that. Let's see, how many are we doing tonight?
3. We got 3 books.
All right, so one more. Cell 3329. I think this is like his second time on the wheel, so congratulations on finally winning.
All right, guys. So that's who we got this week. Tune in next week, next Friday. But don't forget, okay, we're going to have a show coming out on Tuesday.
Make sure to check it out.
Hotels, haunted, scary, spooky stuff happening in hotels in the Lone Star State. That comes out on Tuesday. Before we go, I want to ask the 440-some people that are still in the chat, let me ask you a question. What did you guys think of this show that we gave you guys on Tuesday? Give me your quick comments here. I'll read a couple of them. What do you think was going on with that? Because we are just baffled as you are. And Anunnaki Bro says, I think it was okay. Wow. Okay. I thought it was a great story. And I thought that the person that gave it to me was brave, to say the least. All right. Let's see, Sailor Nemesis says an absolute banger. That's what I thought. But, and I did a lot of work going back and forth trying to make sure that, we got all the information we can. You got to get every ounce of information that you can get on that. All right, guys, let me get started because we got things to do and we got to entertain you guys for Tuesday. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Good night.